Chapter 683. Sima Shao rolled his eyes. Keep acting. You are so scheming that it can scare people to death, and now you are acting in front of me. Do you really think I am that naive? Who are you trying to trick? Oh please, even if you are trying to trick a ghost, you still need to act properly. The magic box had already been opened, and with just his own strength, he had stirred up the entire Heaven's Road. How many people could accomplish such a feat? It was so exciting, so anticipated. How many people's fates were in his hands? After a short period of peace, the remaining ecliptic palace constellations immediately panicked. They all started to denounce the actions of the Honorable Martial Alliance. On the contrary, the enemies of the Honorable Martial Alliance, the Leo constellation, were strangely keeping quiet. He could see Temple's misgivings. Do we need to support the other constellations? The commander of the Fourth Army, Agute, asked. He was rubbing his palms together. Clan Elder and stood in front of the window, staring out. He was in a daze. He finally understood what he was afraid of. The situation that had been in place for thousands of years was about to be completely destroyed, and all of this was because of him. That trace of fear came from his gigantic plan. It was a magic box, and even he did not know what would fly out from it. He decided to take the initiative and change his target. Clan Elder, and who was on the tall building, watched the scene in front of him expressionlessly. His face did not have the slightest bit of complacency or smile. The light from the fire reflected on his face, causing his face to flicker like a statue. Temple was moved by the ambitious plan to recreate a powerful constellation that could rival the Sacred Saint Galaxy. It held a fatal attraction to them. If it was truly realized, then the Honorable Martial Constellation would be able to contend against the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and they would no longer have to bow down to anyone. They used their own actions to prove Heaven's Road's proverb. Aquarius martial artists only need to use money to defeat their enemies. When the entire Heaven's Road's eyes were attracted to the auction of the Ursa Major constellation, the Aquarius King had a worried look on his face. The once overflowing power of the Honorable Martial Alliance, in that moment, had the feeling of the sun setting in the west. He patiently waited for the enemy to arrive. What am I afraid of? And the ultimate goal of the Honorable Martial Constellation was to conquer the 12 ecliptic palaces and merge them into one, forming an unprecedented super constellation. The other party's saints are actually twice as many as ours. The subordinate's report came to an abrupt end. He saw the master raise his hand, and he hurriedly swallowed the words that were in his throat. Aren't they going to retreat? Tang Tian pointed at the intelligence report. What a pity that Gold Saint can't come. Tang Tian was filled with regret. Wu and Star. He vigorously promoted low-level officials who did not achieve their ambitions and appointed them to important positions, which won him a lot of support. After that, he organized the Aquarius constellation to choose the new Aquarius King, and announced the precise time to retreat. That's why we're here. Eldarin turned around and looked at the subordinates in front of him, his indifferent and deep eyes showing a hint of fanaticism. Look at the ground under your feet. It was the wealthiest constellation in the entire Heaven's Road, and it was said that it possessed 1/8 of the wealth in Heaven's Road, so rich. As long as we take it down, these riches will be ours. With this wealth, we can build a stronger army, we can groom more gold-ranked martial artists, we can do more things. Although he did not obtain any relevant information, Tang Tian was confident that the Gold Saints would definitely come, because the pathway was too important. The wealthiest constellation in Heaven's Road possessed wealth that made people jealous, but their military equipment was extremely lax. The Aquarius army possessed extremely luxurious equipment, but they lacked fighting spirit. What made people not know whether to laugh or cry was that all the armies from top to bottom were extremely passionate about doing business, and every army had their own businesses. Doesn't seem like it. Duan Qing muttered. They chose the Aquarius constellation, and they have always been closer to it. If it was a diversion, they should have attacked us or our allies. The authority of the clan elders was greatly reduced, but Elder N was an exception. In such a predicament, Elder N went against the flow and quietly gathered a group of talents, causing his position in the Honorable Martial Alliance to rapidly rise, and he had already become the #1 person in the Honorable Martial Alliance. Andre reminded. Could it be a diversion? Suspicion surfaced on the subordinates' faces, because to them, the Honorable Martial Alliance and Temple's mission was to welcome the arrival of the army. With such a reason, how could they convince the important figures of Temple? It was illogical. It was too illogical. As long as they took it down, they would obtain the largest wealth in Heaven's Road, and who could stop them? Lei Eng's gaze turned to the commander of the 6th Army, Duan Qing. Duan Qing had led the 6th Army to ambush the 9th Gold Branch of the Honorable Martial Alliance, causing the 9th Gold Branch to be expelled, and then ambushed and heavily injured the 7th Gold Branch that came for revenge, causing his name to rise. The super-large constellation named Honorable Martial Alliance. Its energy concentration would increase to an astonishing level, comparable to the sacred Saint Galaxy. Elder An's thoughts involuntarily drifted to the crucial meeting, where he spoke passionately and was in the limelight. Temple also had the same thoughts, but I stopped them. Elder An's first blade was aimed at the Aquarius constellation. The security minister also knew that the Honorable Martial Alliance would definitely not accept what he said, and said, I think that the Honorable Martial Alliance is just finding a way to step down. Why don't we find a death row prisoner to deal with, and we will compensate them a bit more. When the entire Honorable Martial Alliance and Temple's higher-ups decided to send out Gold Saints to attack and occupy Ursa Major constellation, Elder An stood out from the crowd and persuaded Temple. Although he had always felt that the threat of Ursa Major constellation was bigger than Leo constellation, but this time he endured. The Honorable Martial Alliance and the 12 Ecliptic Palaces had been peaceful for so many years, although the Honorable Martial Alliance frequently interfered with the internal affairs of the Ecliptic Palace constellations, but on the surface, they were amiable and gave face. Due to their attachment to power and intense unease, after a short period of silence, Temple agreed to Elder's Honorable Martial Constellation. The fall of Aquarius constellation shocked Heaven's Road. An Honorable Martial Alliance clan elder was assassinated while attending a banquet in the Aquarius Palace, and when he was discovered, he was already dead. The atmosphere in Wuan Star was as heavy as lead. The Saint unit that had just been transferred over acted as though they were facing a great enemy, and even the usually arrogant Tang Chou had a stern expression. If Tang Tian's prediction was true, it meant that all of their previous arrangements had to be destroyed. As long as we give it our all, we can definitely seize the passage. But if the army comes, what can we do? Up till now, we have not taken down any constellation. The wealth of the entire Heaven's Road is in our hands, and only a pitiful portion. What credit do we have? We have no credit at all. We will just be forgotten, and the higher-ups will just give us some small benefits, and we will be sent away. You think that this reason can convince the Honorable Martial Alliance? The Aquarius King's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Why did they make a move on Aquarius constellation? Sima Xiao revealed a harmless smile. Simple, to protect themselves. They feel that the Honorable Martial Continent's move against Heaven's Road is already set in stone, and they are not direct descendants of the sacred Saint Galaxy, so what will they do in the future? They will first obtain something in their hands, so that when they negotiate in the future, they will at least have some bargaining chips. As long as they have 3 to 5 Ecliptic Palace constellations, they will have the leeway to bargain. One after another, figures slowly floated into the sky, surrounding them from all directions. The subordinates were enlightened, and all nodded their heads. Money should be controlled by the light. The ancient 12 Ecliptic Palaces are already rotten. We need to bring a brand new order to Heaven's Road, an order that is enveloped by the light. His subordinates were infected by his fanaticism. Their breathing became hurried, their eyes filled with blood veins, killing intense soaring. The chief of security hesitated for a moment. We suspect that the target was killed by someone familiar. If not, with the target's strength, no one would be able to assassinate him silently. Could it be an internal struggle within the Honorable Martial Alliance? It doesn't matter how Aquarius constellation replies. The man did not even turn his head, and muttered to himself, Lei Ong and the rest definitely think that we will definitely attack Ursa Major constellation. There were even a few strategists who came up with a new deduction, that the Honorable Martial Alliance was already unable to make ends meet in the long-term war with the Leo constellation, and they urgently needed a new source of income, and Aquarius constellation was undoubtedly able to satisfy them. Once the Honorable Martial Alliance occupied the ecliptic palace constellations, they would completely erase the rotten upper echelons and vigorously promote the lower echelons, and would be able to firmly grasp the ecliptic palace constellations in their hands. At that time, even if the Honorable Martial Continent came, they would not be able to easily snatch the fruits of victory from their hands. An E who had obtained the support of Temple became the chief clan elder of the Honorable Martial Alliance, and the entire Honorable Martial Alliance was handed over to him, allowing him to push forward the Honorable Martial constellation. An E also became the chief clan elder with the most authority in the entire history of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Sima Xiao looked at Tang Tian's eyes filled with killing intent, and sensed that something was amiss. In the past few days, he had some understanding of Tang Tian's character. Gold Saint, these 4 words were like empty tie pressing down on them, causing them to be unable to breathe. The majority of the people believed in that statement, and their tensed-up mental state finally relaxed. And the large number of diplomatic groups that the Honorable Martial Alliance had sent out proved that the Honorable Martial Alliance did not wish to become enemies with all the ecliptic palace constellations. He had made preparations to fight with the Gold Saints, but in the end, the Gold Saints did not come, and it was like a punch hitting thin air, causing Tang Tian's entire body to feel extremely uncomfortable. The series of actions caused the other constellations to finally believe that the Honorable Martial Alliance only wanted to take the opportunity to plunder. That's right. Master is right. If that was the case, they could imagine the situation they would be in. It was said that all the people in the Sacred Saint Galaxy were saints. Just this point alone was enough to cause everyone to feel an immense pressure. But very few people knew that the previously unknown Duan Qing had an illustrious family background. His father, before Leong had become the Lion King, was already his personal bodyguard, and after that, he led an army and achieved outstanding military achievements, but unfortunately, he was sacrificed in an intense battle. The entire Heaven's Road was denouncing the actions of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Elder An's words caused the subordinates' faces to reveal a look of reverence. The position of Temple was extremely high, everyone had their eyes on the top of their heads, and no one would place the Honorable Martial Alliance in their eyes. To be able to convince Temple, in the entire Honorable Martial Alliance, only the Master had such influence. Report. The Aquarius 8 great families have been controlled. The entire temple revolved around the Honorable Martial constellation, strategy, and they still had 10 years. After calming himself down, he continued to report. He announced that the Honorable Martial Alliance had no intention to change the traditions of the Aquarius constellation, and after the Order of the Aquarius constellation was established, the Honorable Martial Alliance would completely leave the Aquarius constellation and hand it over to the new Aquarius King. Beneath their luxurious clothes were already rotting bodies. When the balance was broken, when the Honorable Martial Alliance tore off their disguise, the entire Heaven's Road became silent. Amidst the flickering flames, Clan Elder and laughed silently, as though the flames were blazing and fanatical. Clan Elder firmly believed that with just a light strike, the ecliptic palace's constellations that caused people to revere and revere would be like bubbles, instantly shattering and disappearing into ashes. In other words, the Honorable Martial Alliance was just taking advantage of the big families, although it was a little ugly, but the Honorable Martial Alliance did not have the intention to become enemies with the 12 ecliptic palaces. Because if the 12 ecliptic palaces were to unite, it was enough to cause the Honorable Martial Alliance to feel fear. As the Ursa Major King, Tang Tian was heading to an unknown place, how could he not have an army protecting him? That was illogical. Unless the passage did not allow large groups to pass through, and only then would there be no army accompanying him. Tang Tian's eyes immediately lit up. Where? I told the masters, why do we need to attack and occupy Ursa Major constellation? For the passage. We have the passage, we only need 10 years. After 10 years, the passage will naturally open. If we attack and occupy Ursa Major constellation now, and seize the passage, then we have no reason to stop the army from coming. He did not know how to describe his current feelings. Anticipation? Eager to try? But why was there a trace of fear mixed in? Master, this is the reply from the Aquarius constellation. They said, the fate of the Aquarius constellation should be decided by the Aquarius people. The old order of the ecliptic palaces was already completely rotten, and he wanted to establish a new order, a brand new honorable order of the ecliptic palaces. Tang Tian looked at the news regarding the fall of the Aquarius constellation in shock. He did not understand why the Honorable Martial Alliance did not attack the Wuhan star, but went to attack the Aquarius constellation? Why do they need reinforcements? The Lion King sneered, his mouth revealing a dense ridicule. Those fellows who are unable to accomplish anything, it is best for them to be killed by the Honorable Martial Alliance. Although I do not know why the Honorable Martial Alliance started to attack the 12 ecliptic palaces, but the matter is too big, and we will see if they can take care of it. He rubbed his head. Have you found out anything yet? However, as the day approached, everyone in the Holy Temple suddenly realized that they were not prepared. How would the Honorable Martial Continent treat them? How would they treat Heaven's Road? No one was more familiar with the dark side of human psychology than Sima Shao. With just a glance at the report, he could guess most of it. The Aquarius King rejoiced that everyone's attention was attracted to the Ursa Major constellation. If not, the matter would definitely shake Heaven's Road, and the Aquarius constellation would definitely be covered in dust. Report: the Aquarius Palace has been surrounded by us, and is currently resisting. And saw through this point, he found the insecurities of the high and mighty figures in temple. Different from the other people who were depressed and nervous, Tang Tian was filled with fighting spirit, like a wild beast that was full of energy and thirst for battle. The Honorable Martial Alliance announced that they had no intention to change the structure of Heaven's Road, and announced the reason for their attack on the Aquarius constellation, as one of their clan elders was murdered in the Aquarius constellation. The Honorable Martial Alliance requested for the Aquarius constellation to investigate the death of their clan elder and punish the murderer, but were rejected. Other than the Leo constellation and Sagittarius constellation, the other constellations were weak and decayed. After a long period of peaceful life, the aristocrats of the ecliptic palace constellations had long lost their vigilance towards danger, and like livestock, they indulged in pleasure. This atmosphere had been nurtured for a long time, and was already deeply rooted. What was even more terrifying was that the entire upper class had already divided up all the resources, and used their authority to occupy any space that they could, completely blocking the path for the lower-class citizens to rise. Lei Ongqing had always valued friendship, and had always cherished the son of his comrade in arms. Duan Qing's daring but meticulous personality was the same as his father, and was deeply loved and trusted by the Lion King. The Aquarius King instructed, "Go and talk to them, just give them more money, and don't create any problems." Clan Elder In revealed a faint smile, but this smile did not give off any warmth, as an invisible pressure enveloped the room. Although Clan Elder N was young, his authority was immense, and although the subordinates had their suspicions, no one said anything. In Clan Elder An's eyes, the Aquarius constellation was a fattened-up pig or sheep. The commotion gradually escalated. In the intense shouts and killing, the citizens who were fleeing in all directions had fear and panic on their faces. The guards who were caught unprepared were panicking, and in front of the elites of the Honorable Martial Alliance, they were defeated. All of the generals were proficient in strategy, and upon hearing that, their eyes lit up. Clan Elder An's heart was extremely calm, as though the commotion outside was unable to cause any ripples in his heart. The entire plan was completely planned by him, and it was this plan that moved Temple. No one knew how powerful a gold saint was, and the pressure was naturally unprecedented. In the bustling city where people shuttled back and forth, on a tall building that reached the clouds, a 30-year-old man looked down at the ant-like people below him. If Jing Hao was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that the man in front of him was the Honorable Martial Alliance's clan elder N, who had once tried to recruit him. Who should I find to fight? Let's move. In truth, when the Sacred Saint Galaxy had requested for them to investigate the suspicious targets, Clan Elder N had immediately identified Tang Tian and the rest. After that, Ursa Major constellation had publicly announced the existence of the sacred Saint Galaxy and confirmed his guess. Furthermore, Clan Eldarin had also determined that the passage had not truly been opened. The current Honorable Martial Alliance was no longer as illustrious as it was in the past. Clan Eldarin said with deep meaning. All of the generals nodded their heads. Heh, the taste of blood and authority, how beautiful! After Lei Ong finished reading the report, he snorted, a bunch of idiots, they can't even see through the smokescreen of the Honorable Martial Alliance. The Honorable Martial Alliance is going to make a big move. It is truly strange. Why would they ignore the passage? But Clan Elder and subsequent actions proved that he was not a brainless butcher. The saints stationed in the city flew into the sky, their faces were filled with anger, killing intent soaring, but very quickly, the anger on their faces disappeared without a trace, and what replaced it was a paper white face. He started to instigate the temple, and pushed out his own plan that had been brewing for a long time. In their minds, the Honorable Martial Continent was just a symbol of loyalty. They completely did not know what the real Honorable Martial Continent was like, as no one had been there before. The plunder was enough for the Honorable Martial Alliance to eat their fill. Wild beasts that had eaten their fill, before they had completely digested and rested, they would not be interested in other prey. The Honorable Martial Alliance had exerted immense pressure on him, and had even sent out an army to the border, threatening that if the Aquarius constellation could not find the culprit, they would take action themselves. The Aquarius king knew that the other party was just expressing their stance. In history, the Honorable Martial Alliance and the 12 Ecliptic Palaces had many conflicts, but they had never taken the initiative to attack the Ecliptic Palaces, except for the Leo constellation. The Aquarius constellation flowed with blood, and the number of nobles that were beheaded every day numbered in the hundreds. The floorboards in front of the Aquarius Palace were as red as blood. With such an outcome, how can I explain to the Honorable Martial Alliance? The old Aquarius king said helplessly. Report. The garrison army has been defeated, all the captains and above have been killed. Leo constellation, Royal Palace. Humans were afraid of the unknown. I suspect that their goal is most likely the Ecliptic Palace's constellations. Duan Qing's eyes flashed with a look of worry. They definitely have some sort of plan. The big shots of Temple were convinced by, and they were already used to being high and mighty, used to not going back on their words, and in the depths of their hearts, they did not wish for the Honorable Martial Continent to come. They could already imagine their fate at that time. Everything they enjoyed would be taken away, and in the entire Honorable Martial Continent system, they would be at the edge. Temple's appearance meant that the Honorable Martial Alliance had already lost control of the situation. The stronger Temple caused the Honorable Martial Alliance's authority to be greatly reduced. What truly caused the Honorable Martial Alliance to suffer a heavy blow was the consecutive defeats they had suffered at the hands of the Ursa Major constellation. The plan that they had been brewing for 10 years was finally going to be implemented. The Aquarius army that was famed for its endurance and tenacity in history had long disappeared with the flow of time. Even the higher-ups of the Aquarius constellation were not willing to talk about the legendary army with glorious victories, because it was truly too wretched, and all of the fat-bellied old men in luxurious clothes were too ashamed to talk about it. The chief of guards laughed bitterly. No, when the target died, there was no movement at all. He was killed by a dagger-type weapon, and did not seem to notice anything when he was killed. They calmed themselves down and waited for the master to reveal the truth to them, because Tang Tian did not have an organized army by his side. As for the war between the Leo constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance, to the majority of the people, Lei Ong, who had an explosive temper and loved to fight, was definitely responsible for it. Report. The treasury has been taken control. If the gold saints do not come and find us, we can go and find them. Sima Zhao's tone was filled with enticement. I know a place with gold saints guarding it, what about it? Shall we go and fish it out? It's a heaven-sent opportunity. To be able to move Temple, and Honorable Martial Constellation naturally had something to offer. That's right, the more constellations the Honorable Martial Alliance took over, the more their strength would be scattered, and to the Leo constellation, it was definitely a good thing. No one felt that the methods used to deal with ordinary armies could be used to deal with gold saints. The plan made the Aquarius king extremely satisfied. His thoughts were the same as the chief of guards. The Aquarius constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance did not have any hatred, and both parties had always cooperated with each other, especially in terms of business. The subordinates bowed and silently left the room. Temple originated from the Honorable Martial Continent, but after 500 years, the original founder had already passed away. The entire temple was filled with Heaven's Road people, and towards the unfamiliar and mysterious Honorable Martial Continent of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, they were filled with reverence. This reverence was formed from a long period of instilling. From the beginning, Temple and the Honorable Martial Alliance were defined as the front lines of the Honorable Martial Continent's army, and generation after generation, they were instilled with the mission that they had to undertake. Rather than handing the war to the Honorable Martial Continent, it was better for them to do it. Rather than letting the Honorable Martial Continent conquer Heaven's Road, it was better for them to conquer it. It was more suitable for Heaven's Road to be ruled by the Heaven's Road people. No matter how many things were handed out, they could still keep a portion. At the very least, the bigger the territory that they conquered, when it was time to reward them, their contributions would be greater. The urgent and sharp reports came one after another. Chapter 684. You said Bradley? Alun turned. Suddenly, a servant stumbled in and delivered a piece of news. When Bradley rushed to the diplomatic base, the Frost Mountain Army was already under martial law, and after reporting, he was finally allowed to enter the army encampment. When he entered the encampment, he was shocked, because he realized that the Frost Mountain Army was already packed and ready to move out. What's going on? But you have to pay a price for your ideals, you have to pay a price for your dignity. The more you want to obtain, the bigger the price you have to pay, and nothing can be obtained out of thin air, right? Alun suddenly said. The arrogant Taurus, his horns were always pointed towards the sky like swords. I am sorry. Alun softened his voice. Our mission is to protect Miss Sai Lei's safety. Everything else is not as important as this. We have decided to retreat early. We will move out at night. If you are willing, you can come and find us. Bradley still remembered his father's bewildered look, and for some reason, his heart became even more sorrowful. He closed his eyes and tried his best to clear his mind. Maybe it was his destiny. After a moment, he opened his eyes, and his light brown pupils regained their calmness. He did not like the Taurus constellation, so he did not like it, the rotten flesh all over their bodies, the crisscrossing nobles, forming a huge system, and his father, he was powerless to oppose them. But that is the Aquarius constellation. Bradley stuttered. It was precisely because of this fantasy that he maintained his restraint even when those pot-bellied fellows were holding gold-painted pipes and mocking him with thick smoke that almost blew on his face. He knew that his actions would not make them like him, but he did not care. Give me a cup of water. He found Alun and asked. That's right, if it was just for money, the Honorable Martial Alliance's army was here. No matter how much they wanted, the Aquarius constellation would give it to them. But to wipe out the entire aristocratic class, there was only one possibility. The Honorable Martial Alliance wanted to completely topple the original ruling class of the Aquarius constellation. Every single one of them did their best for the sake of eating their fill, to feed their families, to win the praise, to be able to follow the Wolf King. Battle after battle, they were reborn bit by bit and regained their dignity. The Lupus people of today were famous for their perseverance and fighting skills. They were one of the few elite soldiers in the world. Many people heard the news and came, waving their money. But in the hearts of every knoll, they were fighting to follow that person. After drinking some warm water, Brad finally recovered a little, but the haze in his eyes did not dissipate. Thinking of the nightmarish scenes of the past few days, he felt terrible. This was his fantasy. No, we have discussed it before. Alun said solemnly, the Honorable Martial Alliance wants to take action against the Ecliptic Palace constellations and definitely not plunder. It was very simple. If it had been a robbery, the Honorable Martial Alliance would not have killed so many nobles. The Honorable Martial Alliance has killed almost all the aristocratic families of the Aquarius constellation. What do you think this means? He quietly endured, even though he had an honorable identity, but he had never thought of using his position to suppress the voices. The voices were filled with quarrels, filled with ridicule, but it was a type of voice. Maybe the majority of people would laugh it off or ridicule it, but those who were willing to change, those who had fantasies in their hearts, could hear it. But following that, an indescribable rage erupted like a volcano, soaring straight to his head, causing him to lose control. He was like an enraged wild bull, his roar causing the entire palace to tremble. His bloodshot eyes frightened everyone, including his father. It was the first time the Taurus king had seen his son so angry, to roar like that. Brad spoke to Jerome again, but Jerome did not believe him. Luckily, Jerome did not advise him to rest or ridicule him like the others. Jerome knew Brad's ambition, and only told him that since the Frost Mountain army was planning to leave, he should follow them and quickly rebuild the Taurus army. That way, even if they were to meet with danger, they would have another layer of protection. What? The Honorable Martial Alliance might attack us? The Taurus king did not agree, but thinking about his son's angry roar yesterday, he tried his best to control himself. There are no signs that the Honorable Martial Alliance will attack us, so what do we have? We are not the tycoons of the Aquarius constellation. In the 12 ecliptic palaces, we are only considered average. If they attack us after taking over the Aquarius constellation, unless they are crazy, it will cause the other constellations to feel extremely uneasy, and everyone will unite to oppose them. The Honorable Martial Alliance have no reason to attack us. Because you are too weak. Lin was not courteous, and went straight to the point. At this stage, if we were to fall into a fight, it will be extremely disadvantageous for the Honorable Martial Alliance. They need to settle the fight quickly, that way, they can use the might of victory to intimidate the other constellations and destroy their alliance. Brad's throat became dry. He gathered his courage and found the Great Marshal, and told him about Lin's guess. The Great Marshal laughed out loud, as though he had heard a joke. He patted Brad's shoulder, and told him not to be afraid. The Taurus constellation could defeat any enemy, including on the card table. With that, he changed his clothes, hummed a tune, and prepared to participate in the banquet and the card game. Brad did not know how he came out of the palace. He was not a person with a fiery temper, he was humble and tolerant, but in the past few days, he could not help but quarrel. All sorts of rumors and slander, all sorts of mockery and ridicule, were everywhere, and the gazes of everyone around him were filled with peculiarity. He could endure all of that. Long ago when he had knelt down and begged Sai Lei, he knew what he would encounter, and he had already decided he would not retreat. Yes. I just received it. Brad felt that it was hard to understand. I was just about to discuss this with all of you. What's wrong with all of you? Aquarius constellation being breached, what does that have to do with us? This is just plundering. The Honorable Martial Alliance has no money. Brad realized that he could not find any reason to refute. His mind was in a mess. The Lupus constellation at that time. Lin thought about the Million Blood Meridians awakening plan. The entire Lupus constellation was in an uproar, thinking about everyone fighting for a spot, thinking about the strict admonitions of the clan elders. Now that the world was in chaos, the ruler was weak, the ministers indulged in pleasure and did not know how to improve. The Taurus constellation made him unable to see any hope. Lin's face congealed. Did you receive the news of Aquarius constellation being breached? He is truly not bad, that's why I spoke so much to him. Lin nodded his head, agreeing with Lin's words. But speaking of struggle and pain, he suddenly thought about the Lupus constellation in the past, thinking about the days where they could not even fill their stomachs. They were poor and lowly, like ants. For the sake of eating their fill, they were willing to be cannon fodder on the battlefield. He looked at Brad's bloodshot eyes and consoled him. Brad, I think you have been working too hard recently. I think you need to rest for a period of time. Go to Oxhorn Bay and have a good vacation. Come back when you feel relaxed. You don't need to worry about the matters here. Brad clenched his fists tightly. He felt that his body was filled with an inexhaustible amount of power. He felt as though his muscles were made of steel. He was not fighting alone. In the past few days, he had gathered a group of people, young people who were willing to work hard to rebuild the Taurus army. In the midst of all the rumors, they were still willing to join. Their hearts were burning with the same fire as him. On the contrary, the news of the Frost Mountain Army's early retreat had spread, causing the Frost Mountain Army to become the birds that were startled by the mere twang of a bow. They mocked the Frost Mountain Army for being cowardly like mice. They thought that the Ursa Major constellation was just SOSO, to have such a huge reaction with just the slightest movement. Lin patted the dumbstruck Brad's shoulder. Think about it. Brad leaned back on the chair without a care for his image. His tone of voice was extremely tired. The servant immediately rushed over to pour water. But the Taurus bull was the Taurus bull that he loved. It was the place where he was born and raised. As the majesty of the Taurus constellation, he was powerless to pull the Taurus bull out of the swamp, but he had to leave a trace of pride and belief for the Taurus bull. Even if the Taurus bull was destroyed, even if their homeland was lost, with this belief, with this pride, the Taurus bull could be rebuilt. Brad left the Frost Mountain Army's encampment in a daze. He suddenly realized something and rushed towards the Taurus palace like a madman. The ground trembled, and the two of them stood up. Brad finally understood that no one would believe him. No one would believe that the Honorable Martial Alliance would attack the Taurus constellation. Brad received the news, and when he looked down, his face changed. Without saying a word, he immediately rushed out. Brad's face immediately turned white. That's right, facing such a hopeless constellation, he is already considered brave. Chen Zilin sighed. Furthermore, his heart must be struggling and in pain to watch the Taurus constellation fall into the abyss without being able to do anything. He was not only moved by Lin's words. In truth, in the depths of his heart, when he first saw the news, he felt a faint uneasiness and fear. He did not know why, but it was this vague uneasiness that made him look for Lin and the rest to discuss. This kind of optimism caused Brad to feel fear. Lin looked at Brad with sympathy. After interacting with him for the past few days, he knew that the Taurus prince was a good person and was not the same as those dirty people. He decided to make things clear. If the Honorable Martial Alliance decides to make a move on the Ecliptic Palace constellations, they will definitely not only make a move on one constellation. Because once the other constellations have recovered, they will join forces and deal with them. Once they decide to make a move, then they will definitely have more than one target. And we think that the Taurus constellation is the most likely target. With that, he turned and left, until he heard his father suddenly say, "You don't have to be so anxious." That cold and dissatisfied gaze caused him to feel as though he had fallen into an ice cellar, his limbs turning cold. To retrieve the lost glory, to retrieve the lost pride, that was the only meaning for him, Brad, to live and fight. Frost Mountain Army's encampment. The Frost Mountain Army had already completed all of their preparations and were currently resting, waiting for the time to come before they set off. Because he was worried that they would encounter battles in the following journey, Lin hoped that his soldiers would be able to maintain sufficient strength. Brad brought a group of scattered soldiers, holding onto a tattered flag. They sprinted over. The golden wild bull on the flag was galloping in the wind, as though it was alive. "He is quite pitiful," Chen Zilin suddenly said. Chapter 685. Dying in battle is worth it. Jerome, you're crazy. You actually killed Yulun. Duke Missouri Air will never let you go. Another young aristocrat screamed. Luigi looked at the pristine gravel city in front of him. He licked his lips, his eyes filled with fanaticism. It was his first battle after joining Clan Eldarin, and under the suppression of Three Spirits City's mechanical spirit weapons, no one remembered the appearance of Blood Meridian's weapons. Even Onyx Soul had given up on researching on Blood Meridian's weapons, as they thought that it had no future. The Frost Mountain Army is right, Bradley is right. How can there be a better prey than the Taurus constellation? Jerome muttered in his heart. In the disappointing dark and decaying empire, Bradley was the only hope, the only thing worth protecting. A group of people followed behind him, all of them panicking. Jerome wielded his sword and walked forward, blood dripping from the tip of the sword to the ground. His expression was calm, his gaze determined. He had never been so clear on the mission he had to carry. His bodyguards knew that the general was serious, and without hesitation, like arrows leaving the bow, they pounced towards the young aristocrat. The blood weapons group was disbanded, and everyone had fallen apart. But he knew that Bradley truly wanted to revive the Taurus army, and in truth, he had wanted to follow Bradley. He hesitated for a long time, but still gave up. He had spent a lot of effort to sit in his position. If he were to give up, it would not be easy to come back. Jerome still hoped that Bradley would succeed. He was in the army, and he was extremely clear of the current situation. The Bullhorn army was already one of the top elites of the Taurus constellation, but compared to the Taurus army in history, they were still lacking. There was nothing he could do about this situation. Because the Bullhorn army was an elite, it naturally became the best place to shine. Countless of influential disciples wanted to enter, and many of them were people that he could not afford to offend. What better way to prove himself than to defeat the strongest mechanical army that Sai Lei had created with her own hands? When Clan Elder and decided to attack the Taurus constellation, Luigi volunteered. Equip your armor, blow the horn. Bradley, you need to do your best. After generations of nurturing and strengthening, the Honorable Martial Alliance, series of blood meridians, started to display its might. With the support of the Honorable Martial Alliance's most powerful elder, Lu Yiji's progress increased by leaps and bounds. High-level star spirit beasts, and even rare star spirit beasts were hunted from all over the mountains and desolate swamps. When Elder N appeared in front of his house, and said with a smile that he was willing to fund his research on Blood Meridian's weapons, he was dead set on this smiling man. Elder N did not go back on her word. Whether it was funds or any other requests, they were all met. She even found a lot of top-secret information about the Honorable Martial Alliance. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a flag, and his pupils shrank. He was unwilling to accept his failure, so he continued his research. Soon his savings were spent, and he became destitute. A single charge really gave him a headache. The scouts had reported that they had discovered an army, which he initially thought was the Frost Mountain Army. The Frost Mountain Army's decision to protect Grandmaster Sai Lei and retreat to Three Spirits City had long become the joke of the Taurus constellation's upper class. The Frost Mountain Army was described as birds that were frightened by the mere twang of a bow. Cowardly and cowardly had already become their name, and Austin had specially run over to explain it to Jerome. Absolute silence. Lu Yiji had finally created something that he was satisfied with. Shan Mao knew that Sai Lei was Lu Yiji's weak point, and the mechanical spirit weapons were Lu Yiji's enemies. As long as they lost to the other party, Lu Yiji would go crazy. I heard that the Frost Mountain Army's charge defeated the Bullhorn Army? Lu Yiji's voice was extremely unpleasant to listen to, like gravel rubbing against glass. Jerome's expression was cold. He spat out a word, "Kill." "As you wish, my guild leader," Shan Mao replied tactfully. "Honorable Martial Alliance." Jerome saw the slowly approaching army in front of him, and continued to sink down. It was a strange army that he had never seen before, one after another of snow-white monsters that formed an army, slowly approaching the Bullhorn Army's encampment. The Honorable Martial Alliance's unique Honorable Martial flag fluttered in the wind. If it weren't for the fact that these monsters were in neat formation, he would have suspected that this was a beast stampede. All of the star spirit beasts were like lifeless machines. Jerome's cold voice came out, a sword light flashed in the air, and a head flew into the sky, blood spewing everywhere. A few seconds later, the headless corpse fell to the ground. The matter of the Frost Mountain Army defeating the Bullhorn Army was not a secret. The Taurus constellation wanted to cover up their defeat, so they exaggerated the Frost Mountain Army, calling it the strongest mechanical army in history, the secret weapon of the Ursa Major constellation, etc. Just thinking about it made Lu Yiji unable to control his excitement. No, he did not think that the Bullhorn Army could pose any threat to them. Seeing the Yearhorn Army in front of them slowly approaching in formation, the generals of the Saint Blood Army kept their disdain. But in the end, the truth proved that Shan Mao was right. Lu Yiji had given it his all. He forgot to eat and sleep, and worked day and night. He researched and created the unique Honorable Martial series of blood meridians, and successfully transplanted these blood meridians into the star spirit beasts. With that, Jerome did not even look at them and turned to leave. Liu Yaji's personality was eccentric, but he was stubborn, and when Shan Mao proved his ability, his attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. From then on, Shan Mao quickly became the second in command of the Saint Blood Army and gained Liu Yaji's trust. Jerome gave out orders in an orderly manner. His calm and collected expression infected his panicking subordinates, and the restless army immediately calmed down. Making a ruckus before the battle, those who shake the morale of the army will be executed. The exclamations stopped. The young noble stared blankly at the sword that was stabbed into his chest. Plop! He fell to the ground powerlessly. His eyes were wide open. Even though he was already dead, he did not understand why Jerome would make a move on him. Jerome felt awkward at that time. If the Frost Mountain Army is a bird that is startled by the twang of a bow, then why am I defeated by them? Understanding the fate of the Taurus constellation, for some reason, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. Finally, I no longer have to deal with those rotten people. Finally, I no longer have to force a smile. Finally, I no longer have to carefully balance the various powerhouses. If the Frost Mountain Army can do it, so can we. Liu Yaji said coldly. After a moment, his face regained some color and said, "Immediately send people to the back to stop the Frost Mountain Army. Let them take a detour. This is an army of the Honorable Martial Alliance." Liu Yaji suddenly turned his head, his eyes filled with blood as he stared at Shan Mao. "You said there is no meaning?" Saint Blood, the strongest blood meridian's weapon in history. The 9th level Snow Ape King, after being modified and nurtured, created a brand new blood meridian's weapon. Liu Yaji also spent countless of effort to create the first mechanical army in the history of the Honorable Martial Alliance, the Saint Blood Army. Jerome's limbs turned ice cold, his face ashen. He was startled and speechless. Bradley's words were still ringing in his ears. Until he received Bradley's Star Treasure communication, which explained the suspicions in his heart, but he also felt that the Frost Mountain Army was making a big fuss over a small issue. Bradley had too much trust in them, and was duped by them. What Taurus constellation might be attacked? It was most likely the Frost Mountain Army being afraid of the responsibility and finding an excuse to leave. Gather the entire army, prepare for battle. It was the only thing he could do. Shan Mao had just arrived at the Saint Blood Army and immediately pointed out the mistakes in Liu Yaji's tactics. Liu Yaji was enraged. Shan Mao did not retreat an inch, and both parties almost fought. The proud and arrogant Liu Yaji decided to use the results to prove the other party's absurdity. Yes, Bradley, the Honorable Martial Alliance that had completely ripped off their disguise, was an enemy that the Taurus constellation could not defeat. He had never seen the monster army in front of him before, but the terrifying aura they emitted made Jerome understand that they were the secret weapons of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Fighting with them took up the majority of his energy, and was much more tiring than training the soldiers. The noble disciples all had pale white faces. They were in disbelief. They never thought that the usually easy-to-talk to Jerome would suddenly become a completely different person. The bullhorn's low cry sounded out in the pristine gravel city, like the wind blowing across the wilderness. Urgent report to the Taurus Palace. The Honorable Martial Alliance is attacking. Liu Yaji, who was at his wits' end, was actually being approached. Bradley, of course, had the qualifications to chase after illusions. He was the prince, and had the qualifications to do absurd things, and still be able to ascend to the throne in the future. He, Jerome, did not have the qualifications, and it was already not easy to hold onto the fruits of his labor. On the contrary, Liu Yaji tolerated Shan Mao even more, because Shan Mao's standard was extremely outstanding. Jerome, who was flying in the sky, looked at the billowing dust in front of him, his face congealing. The young noble disciples all kept quiet out of fear. Their faces were pale white, afraid that they would make the slightest sound and attract a disaster. Sai Lei. Oh my God! An army of the Honorable Martial Alliance. What army is that? Why are they here? One of the noble disciples panicked and shouted out subconsciously, "We're finished! We're finished! We're finished. Yes. I know what all of you are thinking. After this battle, you can do whatever you want to me, but with the war at hand, whoever dares to break the military law, do not blame me for being merciless. Liu Yezhi, who had personally controlled the Blood Meridian's weapon to fight against the mechanical spirit weapon, was even more affected. He became discouraged, his life became a mess. The mechanical spirit weapon was like a nightmare that enveloped him. He became easily angered, sensitive, crazy, and hysterical. Liu Yezhi had an eccentric temper and was extremely difficult to work with. He had sent back countless of adjutants, even clan elder, and had a headache, and could only send the military general that he admired, Shan Mao. Who knew that Shan Mao would be left behind because of Liu Yezhi. He was different from the other adjutants, Wei Wei. Shan Mao was somewhat frivolous, liked to ridicule, and had a straightforward temper, and did not always tolerate Liu Yezhi. His loved ones were far away from him, his friends were far away from him, the entire world was far away from him. When he saw the flag of the Honorable Martial Alliance, he understood his own fate, and understood the fate of the Taurus constellation. No one was clearer than him on how weak the once tyrannical Taurus constellation was currently. Regardless of anything, I have to ensure the safety of His Highness. Regardless of anything, I have to keep this hope alive. That's what the report said. The one who spoke was his adjutant, Shan Mao, who shrugged his shoulders. But he had to first solve the problem in front of him, the Bullhorn army. This kind of fight is completely meaningless. Shan Mao disagreed. You dare. Chapter 686. The two long axes on the wings slashed down like lightning. The two gigantic axe auras swept across the entire Bullhorn army. They definitely want to defeat us in one move. We need to tell them, if they want to swallow us, be careful of their teeth. Remember our usual building blocks training, the enemies are stronger than us, they definitely do not want to drag the battle to a stalemate, and will definitely use their strongest attacks. We will use building blocks to train to disperse their attacks, and after the formation is broken, everyone will fight on their own. Remember, do not fight alone, we are not their opponent. Try to coordinate with the people around you. Shan Mao's words were like thunder. The light hammer in his hand stirred up a white light that covered the sky, and smashed towards the Bullhorn army. The situation was worse than he had imagined. After the assault, the Bullhorn army was left with a quarter of their soldiers, and none of them were unharmed. They could not help but think about the Frost Mountain army. When they attacked, they were also unstoppable. Shan Mao raised the light hammer in his hand. Luckily for Jerome, he had a high prestige in the army, and all of the officers were personally groomed by him, thus they were extremely convinced. For some unknown reason, maybe it was the pride of the ecliptic palace constellations, maybe it was like what Jerome said, maybe it was anger and unwillingness, but no one left. The sadness on the soldiers' faces gradually disappeared, and they became unswerving. Sadness pervaded the air, and a few of the young soldiers could not help but cry. The officers were dazed, their expressions were ashen, they knew more about the matters of the higher-ups, and became more and more desperate. Both sides got closer and closer, the pressure of MT Tai almost caused them to suffocate. The loud rumbling sounds caused everyone's ears to be unable to hear anything. Inside the smoke and dust that covered the sky, the white light was like a flame, like a demon god's killing machine, causing them to feel how insignificant they were. Do we need to block them? Alright, the Bullhorn army is slightly weak, but we still have a bit of reputation. Die. No. Jerome clenched his teeth. I never thought of living, we need to give them a greeting gift. Their faces were filled with fear and panic. They hated that they were born with an extra pair of legs. They turned and ran, turning into birds. There was only one thought in their minds. We are finished. We are completely finished, we have to run for our lives. Countless figures flew, blood splattered everywhere, but before they could even land on the ground, they had evaporated. Inside, Saint Blood, the frivolous look on Shan Mao's face was gone, replaced by a serious look. The building block training was a unique training program for the Bullhorn army. It was mainly used to train the tacit understanding and coordination between the soldiers. The soldiers would form a loose formation, like a pile of building blocks. Such a formation would fall apart as soon as it was hit. However, the most difficult part of this training was to distribute the force of the impact to each soldier the moment the formation fell apart. This required extremely strong teamwork and coordination. The Taurus constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance never had any enmity, but the soldiers were at a loss. Was the Taurus constellation going to die? Aren't we an ecliptic palace constellation? Aren't we giants? Why was it suddenly going to perish? The soldiers of the Bullhorn army were extremely familiar with building blocks training, and the officers understood Jerome's thoughts, but they felt that Jerome's method was too negative. No matter how strong the Honorable Martial Alliance was, they should not be afraid to such an extent. Shan Mao opened his palm, and light gathered in his hand. A white light condensed into a long-handled light hammer in his hand. Just a few days ago, everyone was still lamenting the death of the Aquarius constellation, lamenting the fact that the wealthiest constellation had died just like that. But it did not have any offensive capabilities, and upon being broken apart, the formation would be completely broken. In battle, the formation was the basis of all tactics, and a formation that was completely broken apart was unable to form an effective counterattack. That was also why it could not be used in battle. Although everyone inside the Blood Meridian's weapons had black faces, but they still completed their tactical preparations meticulously. 3 columns appeared behind Shan Mao, forming a sharp cone with 2 thick wings. It looked like a white duck that extended its head and spread its wings. It was the first time he was leading the Saint Blood army into battle, and it was also the first time the tactics he had designed were used. This army was the culmination of Clan Elder An's countless blood, sweat, and tears, as well as Lu Yaji's faith. Everyone had worked hard for so long, wasn't it, for this battle? Shan Mao's strength had quickly surpassed Lu Yaji, and his attainments in tactics were something that Lu Yaji could not compare to. In the past, the Blood Weapons Group was just a peripheral organization of the Onyx Soul, while Shan Mao was a high-ranking disciple that the Honorable Martial Alliance had meticulously groomed. Jerome's eyes were bloodshot, his left arm drooped down, the bones inside were all shattered. There were only 6 saints left by his side. 2 of them were struck by the light hammer, 2 of them were swept by the axe aura. They died on the spot, and the remaining were all covered with injuries. The ground shook, the air distorted frantically, the white light was like a flame, the ice-cold and emotionless Snow Ape King was like a demon god rushing forward. Saint Blood's descent. Shan Mao's expression was solemn, the blood in his body was boiling, the true power in his body resonated with its Saint Blood, causing its Saint Blood to light up with a faint white light. The familiar radiant spirit chi caused the emotions in his heart to slowly peel off, and he entered a strange state. A saint beside him could not help but ask, such a powerful assault, even the building blocks training would not be able to completely digest it. He suddenly understood Lu Yaji's thoughts. No one bothered about him. Shan Mao did not care. He yawned, a trace of tears appearing at the corner of his eyes, and muttered, "After the battle, have a good sleep." The extremely anxious soldiers suddenly heard their commanding officer shout, and were startled. But everyone knew that their commanding officer was not lying. The army in front of them that was waving the flag of the Honorable Martial Alliance, they did not even bother concealing it. Jerome could not be bothered. He was quickly passing down the tactics to his subordinates. The opponent was stronger than they had imagined, and ordinary tactics were not effective. Shan Mao continued to do things his own way, without any intention of changing, and gradually, everyone got used to it. But the Honorable Martial Alliance's discipline and strict etiquette had long been deeply imprinted in their hearts. Jerome calmly admitted it, attracting the attention of the soldiers. They could not help but guess what their commanding officer meant. The soldiers of the Bullhorn army had always respected their commanding officer. The soldiers' faces were as black as the bottom of a pot. Every time they heard the name of the tactic, their faces would become ugly. Duck-style assault? Are we all ducks? Isn't the Holy Light Hammer-style assault good? Even if it is not creative, everyone can accept the Honorable Martial Assault. Jerome's face could not help but change. The true power in his body actually became sluggish, and the silver armors on their bodies were completely suppressed. It was not only him, the saints by Jerome's side all had a change in expression. The soldiers behind him all swung their light hammers. Facing an opponent that was much stronger than him, Jerome suddenly thought of a tactic that did not have any battle value. He did not have any confidence that it would be effective, but he had no other choice. But the aristocratic disciples on the pristine gravel city were in a different situation. Jerome did not know what the monsters were. He had never heard of Blood Meridian's weapons before, but the opponent's terrifying aura that was constantly rising madly caused him to feel an incomparable shock. A quarter of a counterattack before death. Truly pitiful. Ha! Just at that moment, the Honorable Martial Alliance army started to assault. But the tactic was created by Shan Mao, and he was extremely pleased with himself, saying that the inventor had the right to name it. We are not their match, quickly run. Without saying a word, Lu Yizhi threw the entire Saint Blood army to Shan Mao, and immersed himself in researching the brand new Blood Meridian's weapon. The gloomy words resonated in the air. Shan Mao walked to the front of the formation. Ye said that we need to use an assault to get rid of them. Does anyone have any good ideas? Shan Mao asked lazily. When Shan Mao had just arrived at the army, he had been reminded by 17 soldiers in a single day to pay attention to etiquette. Truly a group of boring fellows. Shan Mao moved his limbs. All right, then we will use an assault. Prepare for the duck-style assault. Every step was like a drum being struck. Looking down from the sky, the soles of the feet would definitely create a large pit. The white light enveloping his entire body had fused into one, and when he rushed forward, it was like a wall of light, crushing down with a terrifying might. The white hammer aura descended from the sky like a raging wave, smashing heavily into the Bullhorn army. The 9th-level Snow Ape King was originally an overlord at the top of the food chain, and only saints could fight against it. They were extremely strong, and the Blood Meridian's weapons that they modified perfectly retained this characteristic. Everyone quietened down, no one left. The entire Bullhorn army was like a loose building block. After receiving the heavy blow, they scattered in all directions. No one made a sound. Shan Mao was definitely the odd one out in the Honorable Martial Alliance. The Honorable Martial Alliance that revered preciseness, discipline, and etiquette, Shan Mao's casual and frivolous personality naturally did not attract people's liking. The soldiers under them didn't know what to do with their superiors. The Saint Blood, behind him all held a long-handled light hammer, while the Saint Blood, on the two flanks wielded long-handled light axes. The Honorable Martial Alliance's secret weapon? Lu Yizhi definitely had the thought of competing with the Frost Mountain army, but the extreme and crazy man wanted to use such a method to tell the entire Heaven's Road. But I have no way to bring all of you to surrender. Jerome's gloomy voice came out from the armor. Because the people in front of you are invaders. I know, we are powerless to stop them. I know, the Taurus constellation is about to be destroyed. I know no one can turn the tides. We will be like the Aquarius constellation and disappear. The radiant aura that enveloped him caused his six senses to quickly expand. The entire battlefield was extremely clear in his mind. The originally solemn Saint Blood army behind him became even more deathly silent. Every single Saint Blood was enveloped with a faint white light. The terrifying aura pervaded the entire battlefield, but there was not a trace of life. The terrifying white light was an extremely dense energy, to the point that even the air in his vision was distorting. Jerome took a deep breath. He suddenly shouted out, "You must be afraid." Jerome is crazy. He is truly crazy. Oh my God, that is the Honorable Martial Alliance. The Honorable Martial Alliance's secret weapon. Lu Yizhi quickly realized, the adjutant that no one liked, had an outstanding sense of balance and sharp battle intuition. He was a natural-born mechanical martial artist. So, their commanding officer became even more eye-catching. I am unable to bring all of you to surrender, because I want to give the empire that is about to perish the last bit of face. I do not want people to talk about the Taurus constellation's demise, that not a single army dares to resist. I do not want people to talk about the Taurus constellation's men, that they do not have any guts. It is my responsibility to protect the land, and that is the last bit of responsibility I can do. If you are willing, please stay. If not, please leave. His gaze became cold and indifferent, like a killing machine, without any emotions. Before coming to the Saint Blood Army, he had never come into contact with mechanical weapons, much less the other type of Blood Meridian's weapon. But Shan Mao, who was extremely knowledgeable, quickly grasped the brand new weapon, and not long later, he had already become the leader of the entire army. Whoosh, all of its Saint Blood, squatted down, the white light aura flowed like water, merging into one. Bang. I am afraid too. Jerome's gaze was miserable. The figures that flew out from his side, half of them were already dead, and a quarter of them were broken limbs. Even the building block training was unable to dissipate the impact. It was truly terrifying. It was truly a terrifying charge. And at this time, the people who felt that Jerome was too pessimistic no longer doubted Jerome's judgment. When the big monsters rushed out, everyone then knew how terrifying it was. The saint nodded his head. He was like a berserk wild beast, pouncing towards the nearest Saint Blood. Chapter 687. You guys, will you be like Jerome? The existence of Blood Meridian's weapons was not a secret in the mechanical army. Master Bing once had a high evaluation of it, and even specially used it as an imaginary enemy in class. But no one had seen the real thing, so when Lin found out that the snow-white monsters were actually Blood Meridian's weapons, he was surprised. The Saint Blood army carried a terrifying might, rumbling as they advanced towards the pristine gravel city. It's Blood Meridian's weapons. Chen Zilin said. He who came from Immortal Martial was knowledgeable and immediately recognized the origin of the snow-white monsters. All shortcuts had a price to pay, and Light of the White Leaf was no exception, as it made the Dantian hollow. The originally stable structure of true power was destroyed, and it was extremely easy to cause a backlash. To suppress the backlash, Shan and the rest had no choice but to develop a corresponding medicine, which had a large number of side effects. They have saints. Shan Mao said loudly, don't mind such a small flaw. Look, we destroyed the strongest army of the Taurus constellation. They must be trembling in fear now. Relax, I hate meddling in other people's business. Xiao En laughed at himself. 10 minutes later, the pristine gravel city lowered its light barrier, surrendering to the Saint Blood army. Shan was sent to a remote mountain, where he met his former adjutant, who was once the backbone of the 10th Division. The only mission they received was to continue researching on the strengthened version of Light of the Red Leaf. Although it could only erupt for a short period of time, but the fighting strength of the White Leaf army was extremely strong. But in the blink of an eye, Jones died, and the 10th army was completely wiped out. Shan looked at the Ares temple in the flames, and sighed with emotion at the ups and downs of life, and the impermanence of the world. Lin frowned. The Honorable Martial Alliance's Blood Meridian's weapon is much more powerful than what Master said. Seems like that is their secret weapon. He had spent countless of effort and conscientious, and finally climbed to the position of the 10th Gold Branch Master. At that time, he was at the prime of his life, and was full of ambition. He wanted to do something big and build the Red Leaf Army, and stood his ground, and pushed Jones to the position of commander. After that, he meticulously researched and created the Light of the Red Leaf secret technique, which could produce a large number of gold-ranked martial artists, and his future was limitless. Maybe. Lin said indifferently. His heart obviously did not agree. He did not think that anyone's loyalty to the king could be compared to the gnolls. However, he had a gentle personality and did not like to argue. Lu Yiyi stared with bloodshot eyes and said hatefully, "You dare to stop me?" Lu Yiji's eyes lit up. Is it Sai Lei? Catch her. It could allow a gold-ranked martial artist's Dantian pool to become illusory, forming a unique form similar to the spirit domain, and thus to a certain extent, imitating spirit techniques. How many years has it been since an army made up of saints appeared in Heaven's Road? After saying this, Shan Mao turned around and left. Behind him, Jerome, who was no longer breathing, collapsed to the ground. Why would there be people willing to sacrifice their lives for this rotten and despairing constellation? And their test subject was a gold-ranked martial artist. Zhui Yan maintained his calm. We need to increase our speed, and take advantage of the chaos to leave Aries constellation. I do not believe that Master Ling Su will watch Aries constellation fall into the hands of the Honorable Martial Alliance. A level 9 Snow Ape King. Chen Zilin said indifferently, purely in terms of strength, it can defeat a gold-ranked martial artist. Take note of the white light, that is the light aura formed by the resonance of the true radiant power. The martial techniques and spirit techniques of the Honorable Martial Alliance can unleash even greater power. It should have been transplanted with a special blood meridian. Our opponent has appeared. Although the two of them had red eyes, they did not cry. He was immediately brought to prison. Not only him, his assistant, the main personnel of the 10th Division, were all killed. Just when he thought that his life was about to end, he was saved by clan elder and Shan Mao stopped him. At this time, we are not suitable to start a battle with Ursa Major Constellation. Everyone started to cry. Lu Yaji's face twitched, his gaze fierce, his voice carrying a trace of anger and unwillingness. This time I will let her go. If you dare to stop me next time, I will kill you first. Shan Mao was caught off guard and ordered, tell the opposing city, they have half an hour to surrender. If they exceed the time limit, the entire city will be wiped out. Lu Yaji stared at Shan Mao, his gaze extremely unkind. His sharp voice was like an angry venomous snake spitting out its tongue. Not only did we not take down a single one of them, we even lost 6 men. Ouyangzhua said hoarsely, there will be a day we will take it back. In the distance, a gigantic light spear pierced into the chest of Jerome, who was the only one still standing. Although they had pulled a group of people, but they were not strong, and did not have any coordination, facing the Honorable Martial Alliance army, they did not have any strength to retaliate. Helplessly, Ouyang and Zhuiyan could only take advantage of the chaos to leave Aries constellation and return to Ursa Major constellation. Their old enemy had finally appeared. The Blood Meridian's weapons released by the Honorable Martial Alliance were extremely powerful and powerful. There's an enemy! Suddenly a scout exclaimed. He pointed to the distance. Over there! It truly made them excited. This is for your own good. Shan Mao said indifferently, Master will not allow anyone to spoil his plans, anyone. Blood Meridian's weapon. Lun was moved. The Honorable Martial Alliance actually has a Blood Meridian's weapon? That is Sai Lei. As long as we capture her, Ursa Major Constellation is finished. No one can compete with us in terms of mechanical techniques. She is worth more than the entire Taurus constellation. Lu Yaji was so excited that his face was distorted. Without question, although the White Leaf Army had many flaws, but it was still one of the strongest armies in the world. For the sake of rebuilding the Silver Frost Mounts, the two of them snuck back to Aries constellation and found a group of like-minded youths. When Aquarius constellation fell into the hands of the Honorable Martial Alliance, the two of them were worried. They knew how weak Aries constellation was, and that the Black Feathers mounts had completely fallen. Very good. Luan spat out 2 words, then turned and left. This request that defied common sense, but gave Sean and the rest hope. They invested all of their passion and effort, and finally created the light of the white leaf, that was even stronger than the light of the red leaf. Shan Mao did not use the light hammer, but used the light spear to pierce Jerome's chest. But this series of weaknesses did not affect the power of the White Leaf Army. Zhui Yan's words gave everyone hope. The extremely low morale was roused, everyone suppressed their sorrow, supported each other, and disappeared into the night. The treasure city had opened. But for some reason, seeing the Ares palace being engulfed by the flames, Sean did not feel any joy, but instead sighed. When the Silver Frost Mounts swept through Heaven's Road, who would have thought that the Ares palace would actually be incinerated by the flames of war? Luan and Shinzi Lin did not say a word. They stared at the battlefield that had already ended. The Frost Mountain army that was escorting Sai Lei met Jerome's scouts, and immediately flew away. When they could see the battlefield, the battle had already ended, and they were currently 10 kilometers away from the battlefield, which was the limit of their vision. For some reason, Brad asked that question. Corpses littered the ground. In front of St. Blood's gigantic body, the soldiers of the Bullhorn army were as weak as infants. But this will affect Master's Honorable Martial Constellation Plan. Shan Mao did not retreat. If you touch Sai Lei, Ursa Major constellation will definitely not let it go, we can only fight. They are much stronger than the Taurus constellation. Chen Zilin said coldly, if you say that, the Crane sect, Sky Dragon and Immortals will definitely not accept it. Clan Elder An's request was to use Light of Autumn Leaves to allow gold-ranked martial artists to step into the saint rank in a short period of time. Lun stopped, his stone-like face became arrogant. Will that happen? We are different from you. Anyone who dares to invade us, from the borders of Ursa Major constellation to our king's palace, every inch of land will become a battlefield, a place to bury our bones, a place to die. Any lupus man, regardless of gender, old or young, regardless of where they are, regardless of their position, regardless of whether they are strong or weak, will rush here and fight to the death. Attacking and occupying Aries constellation was as easy as blowing away dust. They only needed a small team to go out and settle the battle. Brad clenched his fists tightly, his veins popping out, his entire body trembled uncontrollably, tears flowed down without restraint. A friend that he was familiar with since young had died in front of his eyes. It was truly cruel. Brad tried his best to wipe away his tears, but no matter how hard he tried, his vision was still blurred. I am the prince of the Taurus constellation. I carry the hope of the Taurus constellation. I want to be like the commander of the Taurus army in history, iron-blooded and emotionless, but why? Alun understood the meaning of Chen Zilin's last sentence. Mechanical armies had always been unrivaled. In the domain of mechanical techniques, no one could compare to Three Spirit City. The mechanical spirit weapons produced by other families were at least 2 generations behind them. He looked at Brad, who had tears all over his face, and only said one sentence, in the future, we will take revenge for them. Sai Lei's gaze landed on the Saint Blood army in the distance, his eyes revealing an indescribable excitement. In the distance, a thick light barrier rose up. In the domain of mechanical techniques, they had always been the strongest and unrivaled. To prevent more gossip, Clan Eldarin hoped that he could hide for a period of time. He was an opponent worthy of respect, and even if he was killed, he would be left with a complete corpse. Ouyang and Zhuoyen stopped. They turned their heads and looked back. Aries City was enveloped in flames in the night sky. The ancient city that had a long history had been burnt to ashes in the flames of war. The Honorable Martial Alliance had come faster than they had expected. You guys are probably the last courage of the Taurus constellation. Beside him, Brad's face was pale white, his entire body trembling, tears flowing down his face. The two of them stood against each other. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Are we finally going to meet our match? He could be considered to have left a thick and heavy mark in the history books. Shan Mao said lazily. He suddenly raised his head. The sky lit up with a layer of faint light aura. Furthermore, the White Leaf Spirit Domain was not a true spirit domain. It could not sustain a long battle. On one hand, it was because its structure was not stable enough. On the other hand, the true power in a gold-ranked martial artist's body was unable to support spirit techniques, and when the true power was insufficient, they would need to ignite their life force. So, after going through an intense battle, the martial artist would become extremely weak. Chapter 688. The first to panic were not the smaller constellations, but the ecliptic palace constellations. All of these gigantic constellations had been at the top of the food chain for a long time and maintained a tacit understanding with each other. Without much competition, they had always lived a peaceful life without any natural enemies. Be it the Honorable Martial Alliance or Onyx Soul, they all lived peacefully with them. The Libra constellation felt the immense pressure. The Libra constellation's culture advocated freedom, with all sorts of academic schools existing, but their fighting capabilities were not considered strong. The higher-ups of the Libra constellation were clear of their situation, although they were different from the Taurus constellation and Aries constellation's pursuit of pleasure, but the entire Libra constellation was immersed in academics, and did not place much importance on war preparations. At that time, they saw the rise of Ursa Major constellation's mechanical techniques, and felt that it was suitable for the Libra constellation to develop in. Thus they decided to purchase mechanical spirit weapons and related technologies from Ursa Major constellation. Tang Tian handed the defense of Heaven's Road to Tang Chou. With Tang Chou there, even if the Honorable Martial Alliance had secret weapons, it would not be easy to break through Ursa Major constellation. The opponent's move was too brilliant. Urgent report. The small leaf continent has been ambushed, the Red Mountain City has been breached. Suddenly, the tranquility was broken. They were horrified to find that they had become the prey of their prey. The fall of 3 ecliptic palace constellations had brought an unprecedented panic to the other ecliptic palace constellations. The locations of the cities did not follow any rules, and were extremely scattered, and it was impossible to deduce where their main bodies were from the ambushes. It was not only Tang Tian who did not understand this problem, the others did not as well. If we were to say that the previous Honorable Martial Alliance was a wily old hand, then the current one was a lunatic. Although every step of a wily old hand would cause people to be cautious, but every step of his was traceable, while no one knew what a lunatic was thinking. The White Leaf Army defeated the Black Feathers Cavalry in one move and burned down the Ares Palace. The Saint Blood Army completely destroyed the Bullhorn Army and accepted the Taurus constellation's surrender. The 2 terrifying armies had wiped out the Honorable Martial Alliance's decline in the battlefield and used 2 beautiful victories to display their powerful fighting capabilities to Heaven's Road. The news in the past few days had caught even Tang Tian unprepared. Nothing could give them a greater sense of security than having an ally with superior combat strength. First was the Aquarius constellation, then the Taurus constellation, then the Aries constellation. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the 12 ecliptic palaces had fallen. The entire Heaven's Road was speechless. The Honorable Martial Alliance had been the overlord of Heaven's Road for so many years, but there had never been a moment where everyone was filled with fear towards it. Perhaps at the beginning of the war, the Zodiac Alliance might not be a match for the Honorable Martial Alliance, but as the war progressed, the Zodiac Alliance would gradually adapt to the war, and their strong foundation would come into play. They had an astonishing population, endless resources, and a complete system of artifacts. When all of these were used in battle, they could display a terrifying power. Almost all the ecliptic palace constellations had started to expand their armies and prepare for war. However, they had been at peace for too long. Their lax military equipment made their expansion appear to be filled with panic and chaos. Only the Leo constellation remained the same. They had fought with the Honorable Martial Alliance for a long time, and were the strongest. But they paid special attention to the Red Leaf Army and the Saint Blood Army. The 2 brand new armies had displayed a terrifying power that even the Leo constellation did not dare to be careless against. The cities that were attacked were all cities in the Southern Alliance's small continents. And they were not the heavily guarded capitals, but were relatively important. The losses were not fatal, but it was painful. To the small continents, they were originally weak, and when they joined the Southern Alliance, they wanted to hug onto a thick thigh. Now that they had not obtained any benefits, and had suffered such a huge loss, how could the small continents be willing? In front of the Honorable Martial Alliance's war machine, the ecliptic palace constellations were like plump and strong pigs waiting for their harvest. A series of urgent reports caused the atmosphere to become extremely tense. In the blink of the eye, smoke filled the air, causing people to be at a loss of what to do. 13 cities were attacked, of which 7 were breached and looted, while 6 cities experienced intense battles to repel the pirates. When the Taurus constellation and Aries constellation fell, Tang Tian was forced to cancel the ambush. Although the ambush of the Honorable Martial Alliance's mysterious encampment and killing a gold saint was extremely tempting to Tang Tian. Other than the Leo constellation, the other relatively calm constellation was the Sagittarius constellation. The Empress did not care about politics, but as a gold saint, she had the qualifications to maintain her composure. Furthermore, the entire Heaven's Road knew that the Sagittarius constellation and the Ursa Major constellation had a close relationship, and unless the Honorable Martial Alliance was crazy, no one would easily provoke the Sagittarius constellation. The progress of the battle far exceeded Tang Tian's imagination. Tang Tian said resolutely, "The enemy is an expert. Urgent report." The Daoist continent has been ambushed, Wen City has been breached. Tang Tian could not resist but ask, what exactly is the Honorable Martial Alliance trying to do? Who cares about the hundreds and thousands of changes? I will stab them to death. Powerful. Panic spread through the higher-ups of the Libra constellation, and the Ursa Major constellation became their only hope. Tang Tian did not understand. The cigarette burned to the end, but Bing did not notice it. No matter how large the pirates were, they were still pirates, and in a head-on clash, they were not a match for a proper army. The advantage of the pirates was that in the sea of energy, the complicated and ever-changing sea of energy, they could come and go like the wind, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Furthermore, they were more proficient in warship battles, and not battles within continents. Where did they go? What are they trying to do? To the current Ursa Major constellation, opening up the passage to the sacred Saint Galaxy was the most pressing matter. Once the passage was opened, then the Ursa Major constellation's strength would soar by leaps and bounds, and would have a qualitative leap. At that time, he would have the advantage of being in both Heaven's Road and the sacred Saint Galaxy, and would not be afraid of anyone. If he could not understand it, he would not care about it. That was Tang Tian's style. If he did not handle it well, it would definitely lead to endless trouble. It was like a small knife cutting flesh, leaving behind small wounds, although it was not fatal, but if you did not bandage it, it would slowly bleed. Why would the Honorable Martial Alliance risk universal condemnation, and take the risk out of desperation? Once the Ecliptic Palace constellations formed an alliance, it would be a serious challenge to the Honorable Martial Alliance. Bing's first reaction when he received the urgent reports was to praise them. Other than the newly established Leo constellation, the Ecliptic Palace constellations had spent a huge amount of effort on defense. The other Ecliptic Palace constellations had been peaceful for too long and were rather careless in this aspect. Furthermore, due to the large amount of funds required for defense, normal maintenance was a huge problem. It was not only the Libra constellation, the other Ecliptic Palace constellations were also looking for allies. Reorganizing their military equipment was not something that could be done in a day, and to form a fighting force required even more time. The current Honorable Martial Alliance was like a monster with its mouth wide open, searching for its next prey. It was also the first time the Libra constellation had made contact with Tang Tian, and they hoped for both parties to form a deeper alliance. But when the war truly came, they realized that the long-term academic atmosphere had allowed the Libra constellation to produce countless of scholars, but was unable to bring gold saints and powerful military generals to the Libra constellation. Without outstanding military leaders and well-trained armies, all of the mechanical spirit weapons would be of no use. What he needed to do was not only to bring the Null Division into the Sacred Saint Galaxy as reinforcements, the most important thing was to open up a path, which was a race against time. How can the Southern Alliance compensate for the losses of the small continents? How can we deal with the pirates and give them an explanation? Lei Ong specially used the communication treasure to ask Tang Tian about the Blood Meridian's weapons. Now that the Honorable Martial Alliance is attacking the Ecliptic Palace constellations, if we say that attacking the Aquarius constellation is for money, then attacking the Taurus constellation and Aries constellation at the same time, aren't they afraid of forcing the Ecliptic Palace constellations to form an alliance? Slow and unhurried, no pressure, that was the living condition of all the Ecliptic Palace constellations. He suddenly realized that the crux of the war was on him. This abnormal action immediately attracted Bing's attention. It was impossible for the pirates to not be alarmed by such a huge movement. But for the pirates to disappear, it meant that it was a premeditated action. Clan Elder and the youngest of the 13 honorable martial clan elders blossomed with light aura that caused Heaven's Road to raise their eyebrows. The honorable martial constellation plan had been carefully thought out by Clan Elder and the 3 targets for the first wave of attacks were similarly meticulously chosen. Other than the 3 constellations being weak, the wealth of the Aquarius constellation was able to provide them with sufficient funds for the following battles. As for the Taurus constellation and Aries constellation, they were like 2 bayonets stabbing into the Ecliptic Palace constellations, forming a triangular formation. They were initially prepared to digest the techniques and develop the mechanical techniques of the Libra constellation. But Bing knew that the Honorable Martial Continent's shadows were among the pirates. With the Honorable Martial Continent's interference, the matter naturally would not be simple. Such a result would definitely cause the hearts of the people to waver. Bing bit on his cigarette, he carefully read the report in his hands, and in the lingering smoke, he frowned. The Southern Alliance's recent large-scale operation to wipe out the pirates had so far yielded few results. It was not that the southern region pirates were too strong, but the pirates seemed to have disappeared in a night. Bing carefully marked the cities that were attacked on the map. Who dares to attack the Ecliptic Palace constellations? We are still unable to determine who their next target will be. Tang Cho said, they occupy 3 constellations and have too many routes to attack. Furthermore, the defenses of the other Ecliptic Palace constellations are full of loopholes. This judgment made everyone feel somewhat helpless. Attacking 3 Ecliptic Palace constellations was like cutting oil with a burning hot steel blade. It truly did not take much effort. Let us prepare to move out. This sentence always made the people who opposed him speechless. Furthermore, there would always be more things that needed to be spent than money. He could not help but be moved by the shrewdness of the other party. The other party's sudden disappearance made Bing realize that there was definitely an outstanding military general in the pirates' camp. Urgent report. The Viper continent has been attacked. Glorious Sun City has been breached. He believed that the Honorable Martial Continent's commander-in-chief would definitely be able to see that, and would definitely place the battlefield in the sea of energy. But the Honorable Martial Alliance's overbearing offensive stance caused everyone to feel a chill down their spines. That was what he could not understand the most, and to the current Honorable Martial Alliance, delaying for time was the most beneficial. As long as the star door to the Sacred Saint Galaxy was opened, the armies of the Sacred Saint Galaxy would continuously enter Heaven's Road, and the Honorable Martial Alliance would succeed. Chapter 689. In the orders from the higher-ups, they specifically mentioned the Shang continent, and requested her to formulate a plan to attack and occupy the Shang continent. Mei Qianxiu bowed and replied respectfully, Southern expedition. But, even if Mei Qianxiu messed up, it did not matter, because Lady Ro had just received an order from the higher-ups. They had decided to launch a southern expedition. And in the period of time before the southern expedition, she had decided to head to the Shang continent to investigate. The higher-ups needed the Shang continent's pathway. If that was the case, it would explain why the higher-ups could not wait any longer. In that moment, she had a rough idea in her mind. Mei Qianxiu was surprised, but he immediately revealed a thoughtful expression. He bowed again and said calmly, although the outcome of the battle cannot be predicted, but Qianxiu will do his best. No matter what, lady's promotion, Qianxiu will remember it in my heart. Mei Qianxiu nodded his head. His handsome face did not reveal any emotions. How's the situation? But the Honorable Martial Continent also had a star door, just that it was not time to open it yet. The Shang continent's pathway was obviously problematic, because there were no Heaven's Road armies that could enter the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and the Shang continent had to rely on the local armies of the Sacred Saint Galaxy. What else did the Shang continent have? There was only one answer, the star door to Heaven's Road. Lady Ro shook her head inwardly. The current ruler of the Honorable Martial Continent was the great clan elder Daoist. The great clan elder had a pair of eyes that could see through everything in the world. He had unparalleled wisdom and patience. The cities that we broke through all have some gains, but because the cities are not big, our gains are not much. According to your instructions, we did not attack the civilians. The granaries have all been burned. Maybe I can witness the rise of a famous general. There must be something that forced the great clan elder to make the decision to launch a southern expedition. But no one mentioned anything about it, because everyone was sticking to the plan that the Honorable Martial Continent had made 300 years ago, when they first saw the light of hope, to nibble away at the Sacred Saint Galaxy and wait for the star door to open and the Heaven's Road to replenish themselves. At that time, the Honorable Martial Continent that held 2 worlds would become truly invincible, and that would be the start of the expedition. Up till now, the plan has been going smoothly. We did not attack the cities that the enemy placed heavy emphasis on, so they did not make any preparations, other than Yuan Shan City sending troops to chase after us. Our retreat went smoothly. Mei Xianxia's eyes lit up. Great clan elder Daoist had been in power for a total of 40 years, and in these 40 years, the honorable martial continent prospered. Moreover, the great elder had a long lifespan, so he definitely wouldn't make such a low-level mistake as being impatient. Lady Ro did not think that the Shang continent could pose a threat to the honorable martial continent, even if the Southern Alliance was flourishing. But compared to the honorable martial continent, who had monopolized the western region and had matured, the Southern Alliance was still a newborn baby. Its life was so fragile. There were many internal conflicts, it lacked cohesion, and its management was chaotic. Any conflict could destroy this newborn life. Were the higher-ups so impatient? Madame Ro revealed a look of admiration once again. She smiled. Your victory is the best reward for me. But after all, this was a battle method they were not familiar with. The pirates at the bottom were full of fear and lack of confidence in attacking a city. Therefore, when the opponent maintained a high level of vigilance, they would subconsciously return to their familiar fighting style. It's my honor. To the honorable martial continent, before conquering Heaven's Road, they would never go on an expedition. That was their fundamental strategy. But now, this fundamental strategy had been overturned. This was too fanciful. Could it be? It would take at least 3 to 5 months to complete. Mei Xianxia knew that it was a rare opportunity. The honorable martial continent's process of swallowing the various continents in the western region was a vast history of war. After going through the baptism of war, the honorable martial continent that was not known for their armies became stronger and stronger, producing many famed generals. Among them, the most famous were the 5 honorable martial tigers, Mu Zhixia, Mo Xen, Qiu Suhua, Go Cheng Wendao and Jiaya. The time for the star door to open was approaching, and Temple and the honorable martial alliance's fear and bewilderment towards the future had reached its peak. The communication and trust between the two parties were too little. At this time, Temple and the honorable martial alliance were like dried grass. As long as a spark was ignited, they would be ignited. There was no better stage than this. Well done. Mei Xianxia smiled. They want to save the commoners and need to transport rations and resources from various places, which will consume their manpower and resources. We are pirates, natural-born destroyers. We need to make them bleed continuously. How are the various continents reacting? Mei Xianxia was completely immersed. His outstanding talent, under such a focused and difficult situation, started to blossom with a dazzling light. All of the higher-ups of the honorable martial continent had carried out this strategy extremely thoroughly, and from the start to the end, they only fanned the flames and plotted internal strife against the honorable martial continent, and never launched an expedition. An expedition would only cause the entire sacred Saint Galaxy to unite and become enemies with the honorable martial continent. 5 exceptional famed generals, each leading a region, intimidating the masses. But to the other military generals of the honorable martial continent, they had much fewer opportunities. Lady Ro, who was seated in the corner, looked at Mei Xianxia, who was seated at the head of the table. From this, it could be seen that the higher-ups were caught off guard by the changes in Heaven's Road. No, the other party's transport fleet is most likely bait. According to the original plan, we will gather at the designated location, but we need more patience. Mei Xianxia was extremely excited to finally be able to move freely without holding back. To any military general, to be able to control such a large-scale battle was a dream come true. Lady Ro laughed, then turned and left. Although the higher-ups were determined to launch an expedition, but for such a large movement, just the preparation work was extremely complicated and required time. The 5 honorable martial tigers gathered from various places, the preparation of resources, the choice of route of attack, all of these had to be discussed repeatedly. Lady, do you need to rest? He named the first phase of the war, apprehension. What happened in Heaven's Road? Lady Ro suddenly opened her eyes, revealing a look of shock. This seemingly foolish perseverance caused the Honorable Martial Continent to become extremely strong, to the point that many people in the Honorable Martial Continent felt that the Honorable Martial Continent's strength was sufficient to launch an expedition. What will the Shang continent be like? The Honorable Martial Alliance and Temple Rebellion. To the pirates, attacking transport ships was their most familiar method of fighting. In truth, it was rare for pirates to attack cities, as the estuaries of the various continents were all heavily guarded with fortresses. Her heart was filled with anticipation and curiosity. Regardless of whether it was the research on spirits or the Honorable Martial Technique system or the encroachment strategy, none of them could produce results in a short period of time. For the Honorable Martial Continent to be able to develop to its current state, it was because of the Honorable Martial Continent's higher-ups' stubborn persistence towards these strategies for the past 500 years. Lady Ro revealed a warm and gentle smile. "It's fine, I will be leaving for a period of time, I will leave this place to you, is that all right?" Mei Xianxia was able to directly attack the Shang continent and seize the passage. Establishing such an unparalleled achievement was the only way for him to be on par with the 5 Honorable Martial Tigers. But Lady Ro knew that it was impossible. The Shang continent had won every battle, and were definitely not easy to deal with. The adjutant was reporting the battle report. His face was filled with excitement. From the looks of it, the progress was extremely smooth. After thinking it through, Lady Ro calmed down. She rubbed her temples. Thinking with all her might had made her feel tired. But a single victory would allow the 5 Honorable Martial Tigers to see Mei Xianxia's talent. As for the rest, it would depend on Mei Xianxia's own luck. Lady Ro looked at Mei Xianxia in admiration. From the start till the end, she did not interrupt him. This young man had extraordinary self-confidence and outstanding talent. He only lacked a stage. Lady Ro was an intelligence officer and knew that her own military capabilities were not enough to support such a large-scale operation. Mei Xianxia, who came up with the strategy to attack the southern region, became the best candidate and became the commander-in-chief. Mei Xianxia's warm voice contained a strong self-confidence. No one was born to be a famous general. Famous generals were born from fighting. The unpredictable changes that happened on the battlefield, the battles of wits and courage with the enemy's generals, all of these experiences were not things that could be obtained from books. Every battle was a rare opportunity for a military general. The larger the scale of the battle, the more complicated the situation, and the higher the requirement for the generals, the more valuable experience the generals could obtain. She was an intelligence officer and knew the importance of intelligence, and that was her mission. There was only so much she could do. It was Mei Xianxia's first time holding such an important position. Although he was the one who drafted the strategy to attack the southern region, but what he submitted was only a prototype. The entire plan's implementation was personally carried out by the higher-ups. Mei Xianxia noticed Lady Ro's weariness and asked with concern. Towards the lady who had given him limitless support, he had the highest respect. So when Mei Xianxia's plan was first proposed, it was met with opposition from many people, but with Lady Ro's support, the plan was carried out. No one would have thought that it would go so smoothly. The various continents have increased their vigilance. The adjutant reported, "It will be difficult for us to succeed. From the current situation, I suggest that we attack their transport fleets. That way we can exhaust them and hasten their blood loss." Lady Ro did not tell him the top-secret information, as Mei Xianxia's rank was not high enough. She thought for a moment, then said, "You have roughly 3 months. I hope that in these 3 months, you will be able to obtain a dazzling victory." For some reason, such a thought popped up in her mind. She was shocked by her own thoughts, but in the next second she believed in her own guess. She was an intelligence officer and had a suspicious attitude towards everything, especially loyalty. Furthermore, the connection between the two parties was extremely weak, and the Sacred Saint Galaxy did not have enough control over the Honorable Martial Alliance Temple. In front of the 5 Honorable Martial Tigers who held high positions and had outstanding military achievements, the other generals did not have the right to speak. The 2 words that made people excited revealed an unusual aura. Lady Ro was extremely shocked, because it had completely overturned the previously formulated strategy. The honorable Martial continent had grown from an ordinary continent to the point of annexing the western region, all because of their persistence in strategy. When warships attacked fortresses, they would lose the advantage of mobility and would instead be easily destroyed by the fortresses. She hoped that before the southern expedition began, Mei Xiao would be able to grab hold of the time and obtain a victory. Only then would he have the chance to not be completely suppressed. Once the southern expedition began, the 5 honorable martial tigers would definitely be mobilized, and the only suspense was how many of the 5 honorable martial tigers would be sent out. Chapter 690. Courting Death. Oh my God, this is completely courting death. How can I be courting death like this? Catch. Before Pai Pa could finish, she suddenly realized that a red figure had appeared in front of her. Along the way, there were many new cities gradually forming. Such a bustling scene caused Wuma Tian's blood to boil. Bing's gaze was shrewd. The man in front of him was obviously a veteran. Along the way, he discovered even more. Other than the flourishing businesses, there were even more armies. That's right, armies. He saw at least 4 training armies along the way. The smell of smoke in the room was heavy. The sunlight shone in through the window, causing the smoke and dust to slowly spread out. A single mistake may cause everlasting sorrow. When I go back, I must definitely teach my subordinates a lesson through blood and tears, and tell them that it is most convincing. Oh, I must definitely not forget the 20,000 cloud coins that old Wang still owes me. Who else owes me money? I can leave, but I cannot leave a debt. Last year, Xuanzi said that he wanted to treat me to a big meal. Oh, I cannot let him go back on his words. Where should I go? I have to think about it. I have never been to the roasted pig trotter's shop that Mingxing mentioned. Sigh, I am so hungry. Could it be that the problem of me getting stuck in the oil has happened? Or is it because of my income? Along the way, he was on tenterhooks, but he did not have much fear. He did not do anything devoid of conscience. For such a local army, the salary was pitiful and could not be given out normally, so they had to earn their own income. The upper echelons turned a blind eye to these little tricks of the lower echelons. Pig trotters? Bing's face was covered by the lingering smoke and could not be seen clearly, but his squinted eyes flickered with a cold aura like a blade edge. Since you like pig trotters so much, from today onwards, you will go and handle them. Although our kitchen department does not have such a menu, but I agree to add it. Your mission is only one, and that is to provide pig trotters to all the armies. After transferring Wu Ma Tian to the kitchen department, Bing continued with his daily work. The incident of the pirates attacking the city did not seem to affect him at all, other than getting the various continents to be on high alert. He did not do anything else. Bing suddenly asked. He noticed the man in front of him, his eyes were wandering, and his expression was starting to become sluggish. When Wu Ma Tian regained his senses from the hole in his brain, Bing had already disappeared. Yes, the monster was modified by Screw. Pai Pa explained. There was a batch of students whose results were not very good, but they were very suitable for the monster, so Screw made one for all of them. They like to call themselves the Monster Army. In the war room, there was a huge map hanging on the wall. It was filled with lines of various colors and marked with numbers. It was so densely packed that it would make one dizzy just looking at it. Sai Lei held her head high, and her eyes were filled with flames. The current situation was not as difficult as before, and compared to the huge battle in Heaven's Road, it could even be considered easy. But at that time, although he was also very busy and nervous, it was enough as long as he carried out the orders perfectly, so he didn't feel much pressure. Even if the sky collapsed, there would be plenty of people holding it up. It wouldn't be his turn. Wu Ma Tian had already decided, if the higher-ups were to use this to punish him, he would first pay the 1 year and 7 months of salary that he owed. This discovery instantly caused all of his distracting thoughts to vanish. The Saint Blood Army's Blood Meridian's weapon greatly stimulated her. Although she could still easily list out all of the flaws of the Blood Meridian's weapon, but in terms of overall performance, the Frost Mountain was not inferior to the Saint Blood. Big brother, where do I go to the cookhouse? Wu Ma Tian's mouth was wide open. He looked at Bing in a daze. facing such an absurd order, he did not know what to do. So when young man Tang was around, Bing never felt much pressure. Wu Ma Tian stood perfectly straight. He had already stood there for over half an hour. And Xian and the rest, I wonder how they are doing. I am such a small figure, how would the higher-ups know? He did not know that Bing was secretly observing him. Wu Ma Tian, who had already given up, calmed down. When he entered the Shang continent, the prosperity of the Shang continent caused him to open his mouth wide. All sorts of merchant ships were coming and going, buildings were being developed everywhere, dazzling and beautiful signboards were everywhere, each one more luxurious than the other. Comparing Yuanshan City's commercial street to this, it was truly so shabby that it caused people to feel ashamed. The densely packed stream of people was like a densely packed cloud coin that flowed. On the table, there was a transfer order. He was transferred to the cookhouse. She turned her head and looked towards the training grounds. What entered her vision was an extremely ugly mechanical spirit weapon. From her aesthetic point of view, it was truly an extremely ugly mechanical spirit weapon. The bloated and mottled body was like a wild beast that had contracted a strange disease. Imagining himself in his later years in a broken house, Wu Ma Tian's heart was filled with sorrow, and he almost cried. But, out of the 13 cities that were attacked by the pirates, only Yuanshan City chased after the pirates, and that was Wu Ma Tian. He had never been to the Shang continent before, but he knew that it was a famous poor place. She swore in her heart that she would definitely create a brand new mechanical spirit weapon that could defeat Saint Blood in all aspects. Monster? Sai Lei's eyes lit up. This is too much. But Bing had never thought of being a leader before. It was so tiring, and life was meant to be enjoyed as long as everyone was there. It was good. I wonder when Crazy Tang will arrive. Wu Ma Tian, who was in a daze, did not think at all, and blurted out. When he reacted, his face turned pale white. What is that? She blurted out. Wu Ma Tian trembled as he picked up the order and walked towards the door. The sunlight outside was unable to erase the anger in his heart. He clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with determination. He had decided to let the goddamn smoke addict understand what it meant to be killed but not humiliated. After passing through the training grounds, an abnormally oppressive collision sound came out from the training grounds, causing her to stop in her tracks. Sai Lei had safely returned to 3 Spirit City, causing the entire Ursa Major constellation to heave a sigh of relief. To the current Ursa Major constellation, Sai Lei was definitely a strategic and crucial figure, and if anything were to happen to him, it would be a huge loss to Ursa Major constellation. What's the use of kneeling and begging at such a time? Hugging my thigh? Would it be better if I burst into tears? Should I just resign and not do it? Will I be dragged out by the guards at the door and fed to the dogs? He felt that his determination to die had already attracted the attention of the guards at the door, and he went forward. Ever since she was hailed as a grandmaster, it was the first time she had met with a challenge, causing her fighting intent to soar to an unprecedented level. As expected, I am not a qualified leader. At the start he was still fearful. He did not understand why the higher-ups wanted to meet him. Although he was the commander of the Yuanshan army, but the Yuanshan army was just a local army stationed in Yuanshan City. Yuanshan City was a small city, and the Yuanshan army was naturally not a big army, and at times, they still had to play a role, maintaining law and order, escorting merchant groups, etc. Wu Ma Tian was not tall and had a skinny body. A few strands of hair drooped down from his forehead, as though he had not washed them for a few days. Along with his slightly plump and round face, he had an indescribable wretchedness. His eyes were unfocused, as though he was in a daze. His standing posture was relaxed. His entire body was not tense at all, as though he was a skeleton that was about to fall apart. In front of his clothes, there was a large oil stain that had not been washed clean, which was not recent. When he saw Bing, he had a stomach full of suspicions. He raised his head and stared angrily at the roasted pig trotter's boss, and when he saw the face in front of him, it was as though a bucket of ice water was poured over him. He opened his mouth wide. His entire being was like a statue, not moving an inch, completely frozen in place. But to the proud and arrogant big sister, suppressing the opponent in all aspects was the only outcome that she could accept. But at the moment, all of the pressure was on him. Every time that happened, he would easily think of Tang Tian. Although the young Tang was crazy from day to night, and did not have many normal moments, but his mental state was so thick that it seemed as though it did not exist. The young Tang would never feel the pressure, and if someone were to ask him about the pressure, he would definitely raise his head and say, "Why think so much? Just directly destroy the enemy." The man in front of me who is smoking and puffing is the #1 general of the Southern Alliance? Is he even a spirit? Spirits can actually smoke? It looks like it tastes good. Should I ask him what brand it is later? The first thing I said to Shangguan was actually to ask for a cigarette. Bing was not stingy, and directly threw one to Umatian. Pai Pa, who was by her side, followed her gaze and realized, "That's Munster." He stretched his back and subconsciously touched the box of cigarettes, but his hand quickly stopped. He had used up his cigarettes recently and did not have much left, so he had to slow down. She did not even have the intention to rest. Stepping on her high-heel shoes, she rushed towards the laboratory. Her killing intent soared, causing everyone to give way. To provoke Big Sister at such a time, they would definitely be dead. Suddenly, he raised his head, revealing a look of suspicion. The flow of energy in the air made him feel a trace of something unusual. The energy flow here seems to be under some sort of control. Wu Matian only felt his vision darken. It's over, I will definitely be demoted. The damned commander no longer has anything to do with me. I will lose my job. After spending all my savings, I will have to live on the streets. My old age will definitely be very sad. Bing was startled for a moment when Wu Matian asked him for a cigarette. He had met so many subordinates, but no one had ever asked him for a cigarette. My life is too dark. What problem do you have? In a daze, Bing curled up on the sofa and fell into a deep sleep. Problem? Oh, this cigarette is not bad. Can I have one? Anyways, he felt that this lousy commander was boring. Then bring it on. Wu Matian, who was still immersed in roasting the trotters, subconsciously took it. Upon touching it, it was so thin and light, he immediately became angry. Boss, why are the pig trotters so small? Wily old soldiers were always troublesome in the army. They were the most knowledgeable in protecting themselves, and were the most commonly used methods, as most of their hot-bloodedness had already been worn down. Experienced generals all disliked having wily old soldiers in their own troops, as the atmosphere of the army was easily corrupted. I wonder where Crazy Tang is now. Sai Lei stepped on his high-heel shoes and directly jumped into the training grounds and rushed towards Monster. Bing regained his senses from his state of concentration, and his gaze moved away from the map. He stood there for half a day, but Bing acted as though he did not exist. Wu Matian still knew the rules. Without his commanding officer's orders, he naturally did not dare to move. He continued to stand straight, but the thoughts in his mind started to flow. Chapter 691. Luckily, Xieyuan always carried out his superior's orders to the letter. He did not ask why. Since Master Bing said to let him figure it out himself, then he would figure it out himself. Maybe Master wanted to test him. Furthermore, to equip the entire unit with star treasures already made him extremely grateful, much less letting him figure out his own tactics. No matter how difficult it was, he would definitely not frown. Xieyuan could only suppress the fighting intent in his heart, but he could not help but be worried. The situation in the Shang continent was like walking on a tightrope. If he was slightly careless, he would fall into the abyss. He did not know how Master Bing would deal with the situation. Her mechanical spirit weapons were becoming more and more complicated. The grade of her martial spirit was also becoming higher and higher, but the requirement for the mechanical martial artist was also becoming higher and higher. He suddenly laughed at himself. I really think of myself as a savior. But regardless of how many flaws there were, it was unable to cover up Monster's radiance. Because Monster's construction was extremely cheap, and compared to the expensive Frost Mountain, it was truly worth it. One Frost Mountain's construction cost was enough to build 20 Monsters, but it was already in Xieyuan's hands. Xie Yuan stood in the center of the formation, his expression solemn. 108 exquisite swallows danced in the air, surrounding the entire formation. These swallows were petite, their bodies were only as long as a finger. They released a white moonlight aura, like a group of mischievous spirits. The densely packed light regiments quickly dimmed down. Xie Yuan gently caressed the new moon-form swallow command whip in his hands. In this period of time, everyone had improved extremely quickly, and all of their star treasures had absorbed an astonishing amount of energy. But half of the energy that the entire army had absorbed was absorbed by the new moon-form swallow command whip in his hands. Xie Yuan was dumbstruck. Master Tang Chou was a person who personally handled everything and would specially plan out the details of every tactic. But for Master Bing, who knew that even his style would change so completely. Master Bing definitely has a way. Monster had a different style. It was sturdy, simple, easy to use, far from being as dazzling and gorgeous as Frost Mountain, to the point that it was somewhat ugly. But Screw's deep understanding of mechanical techniques was displayed vividly on Monster. It didn't have any fancy joints, but it was astonishingly stable and unusually sturdy. In comparison, the Frost Mountain's joints were more like exquisite works of art. The swallows that filled the sky suddenly flew in from all directions and entered his hands. Pa pa pa. The concentrated sounds of explosions. A moon-white long whip in Xie Yuan's hands grew at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. The long whip with 108 segments was like a moon-white bone snake, slowly swaying. When Master Bing suddenly threw a bunch of star treasures to them, other than being ecstatic, Xie Yuan also had a headache. Secret treasures were, of course, good things. Their prices were obvious. Each of the 5 Southern Islands palaces had a secret treasure, and this had long made Xie Yuan extremely envious. But he was not a general who liked to make a fuss, so he remained silent. Sai Lei remained silent throughout the process of studying Monster up close. The monster army was quietly formed. This was directly related to the moon swallow's whip in his hands. This exquisite and small swallows had an extremely mysterious name, called moon swallows. Their figures would change like the moon, crescent moon, half moon, full moon. Every change would bestow them with different abilities. Every soldier sat down limply, their entire bodies perspiring profusely, their eyes staring blankly as they gasped for breath. No one spoke, they did not even have the strength to move a finger, and were seizing the time to rest. Master Bing only had one request for them, to seize the time to train. Xie Yuan, who was naturally introverted, felt as though a storm was raging in his heart. This caused Sai Lei to be shocked and enlightened. She suddenly realized that battles were different from what she understood, and their mission was to seize the time and quickly raise their strength. This extremely ugly mechanical spirit weapon was just like its name. Its ugly appearance contained an astonishing amount of power, causing Sai Lei to be shocked. For the sake of not attracting attention, they had specially chosen this place. The entire process lasted for a full 6 hours, causing Xie Yuan's forehead to be covered in perspiration. This was the spirit treasure that Little Fool had specially refined for him, the moon swallow's whip. The evening snow ocean in Shirsen's hands had long made all of Bing's subordinates jealous. Xie Yuan did not dare to have too many wishful thoughts. He was very clear that he and the Swift Army were just bot armies. In truth, the boss was already extremely kind to them, and regardless of whether it was them or the Skull Unit, they were all satisfied. Gradually understanding the Star Treasure's capabilities, Xie Yuan, who was outstanding in tactics, quickly fumbled out a unique army training method. One bright and one dark, one inhaling and one releasing, energy flowed rhythmically into the formation, and upon entering the formation, it would be broken apart by the swallows flying around, transforming into countless strands. Like the gossamer of spring rain, they entered every star treasure. Wave after wave of energy continued to flow in. The light auras of the star treasures became more and more intense. Deep inside the sea of energy, a synchronization rate of 98%, this was a number that Xie Yuan did not even dare to think about in the past, but he did not expect it to be so easily achieved. In the future, The Battle of Heaven's Road would definitely be a large-scale battle. Xie Yuan's situation was slightly better. He quickly regained his strength and stood up to look around. Seeing that everyone was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and sat back down. The soldiers, even if they were resting, still held onto the star treasures with all their might. After this round, he already had a rough idea on how to assimilate the star treasures into an army. I heard that Aya obtained a big sword that is also a spirit treasure. Monster toppled many of Sai Lei's understandings. Every single part of it had the boorish style of the Southern Cross Army. It did not have any sleek lines, no wings, but it allowed it to possess an extremely sturdy defense and astonishing strength. With a weakened martial spirit, it would be extremely strenuous for it to carry out complicated movements. But at the same time, it greatly lowered the requirements for mechanical martial artists, and along with the simple and refined movements and tactics, it could unleash an astonishing might. Ursa Major Constellation needed mechanical spirit weapons with good performance and low cost, because only with that could they display the advantage of the Lupus race. After that, he started to bring the Swift Army to experiment. The southern 5 islands constellations walked the path of individual fighting and were not suitable for armies. Xie Yuan was an extremely meticulous person. He repeatedly deliberated and practiced. He was familiar with every soldier and their star treasures. The entire set of methods revolved around the spirit treasure in Xie Yuan's hands, the New Moon Swallow's command whip. Using the 108 New Moon Swallows, Xie Yuan's control over the army had reached an astonishing level. The current synchronization rate of the Swift Army had already reached 98%, which was a terrifying number. When the synchronization rate was above 90%, every increase in percentage was extremely difficult. Xie Yuan's mouth could not help but reveal a smile. Xie Yuan had never stopped communicating with the Shang continent, and every 3 days, he would report the progress of the training to Master Bing. He had also heard about the incident of the pirates attacking the city, and Xie Yuan immediately knew that they were not ordinary people. The other most important use of the New Moon Swallow's command whip was to filter out the impurities in the energy, leaving behind a type of energy similar to moonlight. The entire army's star treasures absorbed energy of the same attribute, and that was the reason why their synchronization rate was able to reach such an astonishing number. If they did not have sufficient rest, they would definitely not be able to persevere through the next round of training, and would drag the entire army down. Around him, every single soldier had a silver weapon floating in front of them, the weapon releasing an intense silver light. Every single soldier was perspiring profusely. They did not dare to relax at all, and worked hard to control the star treasures in front of them. Its thick arms and 4 limbs bestowed it with extreme stability and astonishing strength. It stood there quietly, as ferocious as its name suggested. When the master truly gave the star treasures to the Swift Army to equip, the entire army was so happy that they were going crazy. But after that, Xie Yuan asked Bing for instructions on how to train the star treasures, and what kind of tactics were required, but what he did not expect was that Master Bing threw down a sentence of, "You figure it out yourself," and did not ask any further. The place where they trained was extremely far away from the Shang continent, it was extremely far away from the sea route, and there were no other continents nearby, thus there were few people. When they trained, they created a huge commotion, and the converged energy vortexes were extremely powerful. One after another, light regiments floated in the sea of energy like light cocoons. They were arranged neatly, flickering in and out, as though they were breathing. As though they were breathing, the surrounding energy would be sucked into the formation like seawater, and the formation would produce vortex-like ripples. Just this advantage was enough to move Tangzhou. With the New Moon Form Swallow command whip and the star treasures, as long as there was enough time, Xie Yuan had the confidence to raise the Swift Army from a silver-grade army to a gold-grade army. It was something that he did not even dare to think about in the past. It was the dream of any famed general, and it was not an opportunity that a general of his level could obtain. But his request to go out to battle was rejected by Master Bing without hesitation. Xie Yuan suddenly thought of a phrase. Xie Yuan was a strict and meticulous person, and did things in an orderly manner. He first found the 5 southern island constellations, and carefully consulted them on how they trained. as they had come into contact with star treasures much earlier and had much more experience. After that, he went to visit Jing Hao, Crane and Ling Su, and sought their help to resolve the doubts in his heart. What was surprising was that after swallowing such a vast amount of energy, the new moon form swallow command whip did not have any changes, and that made him look forward to the evolution of the new moon form swallow command whip. Ursa Major Constellation walked the path of elite soldiers, and did not have many armies. The mechanical army was split up: Tang Yi's Lupus Army, Flute's Hunting Net Army, and Ta Dun's Plateau Army. These were the four main armies of Ursa Major Constellation, but with regards to the chaotic situation in the future, Tang Chou felt that their army numbers were far from enough. You treat me like a statesman, and I will repay you with a statesman. It was not that monster did not have any weaknesses, but on the contrary, its weakness was very obvious. It could not fly, and with its heavy body, it needed to consume even more energy. Its martial spirit's grade was not high, and thus it was not as intelligent as Frost Mountain. It also had requirements for mechanical weapons, just that it was more focused on the body, and not the ability to communicate with the martial spirit. Monster S1-on-1 standard might not be inferior to Frost Mountain, but its overall performance was much weaker than Frost Mountain. The energy flow became slower and slower, and Xie Yuan knew that everyone was at their limit. He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Open!" Chapter 692. She had never thought about that before. The female officer continued to speak. For the sake of the pigs, she was willing to risk it all. That's right. Jia Yu's expression became more relaxed, but deep in his eyes, there was still a trace of worry. The reason why I did not oppose the southern expedition was also because of that. A third of the southern region, if the three of you were to go, the possibility of success would be higher. But a war like the southern expedition has never happened before, and we cannot predict the reactions of the various continents in the southern region. If they were to stick together, then even if we take down the Shang continent, we will suffer heavy losses. It was not the first time he had seen the soldiers training, and he had some experience in it. It was just that Yuan Shan City was a poor place with nothing, and he was unable to carry out any training. When he first went, he was still ambitious, and wanted to create a strong army, but reality quickly defeated him. Not to mention training, it was difficult to even get his daily salary on time. Luckily for the honorable Martial Continent, they had always faithfully carried out the strategies set by their predecessors, and although the steps were disrupted, but their long-term accumulation and preparation were still extremely solid. Regardless of resources or the development of armies, they were far from what they were in the past. With the three famous generals moving out and taking down a third of the southern region, the honorable Martial Continent was extremely confident. Including him, everyone had to do some business to survive, and many of their businesses were not clean. But he still tried to find opportunities to do some basic training, because if they were to clash with others, they would not be in a bad state. The female officer stopped abruptly. He recognized her. Every time he delivered roasted pig trotters, she would be the first to rush over. Is she a reincarnated hungry ghost? Humph. Looking at her, she definitely relied on her connections to get here. If not, why would she be so free when everyone is training? Furthermore, you are a woman. Can you pay attention to your image? I lack the competitive spirit. This kind of war is not suitable for me. Boss Mu will definitely not go either. He needs to guard the Wei Yi Guan continent. That is the stronghold that leads to the Savage continent, and the Savage continent has been in turmoil recently. I heard that there is a female war goddess there that is invincible. Boss Mu is very worried. Once all the tribes in the Savage continent are united, it will be a huge threat to us, and Boss Mu will have a headache. Eat less. Wu Ma Tian stared at the female officer. There is a limit. If you eat other people's food and they come to find me, I can only find your army commander. The female officer, not interested. Wu Ma Tian snorted. The female officer coughed lightly. Do you want me to explain it to you? Our skull unit's tactics are rather exquisite. Yo. The female officer was truly surprised. She put down the pig trotter in her mouth and sized Wu Ma Tian up. I couldn't tell, you are of the same trade. Are there hidden dragons and crouching tigers even in roasted pig trotters these days? Suddenly, a voice came out from beside him. Wu Matian regained his senses and looked at the other party with an unkind expression. A woman in an officer's uniform casually grabbed a roasted pig's trotter from the basin and spoke in a muffled voice as she chewed on it. The cookhouse's roasted pig's trotters were currently popular among the various large armies, and the worst part was that there was a fixed supply, and it was hard to get a single trotter. They had to place an order early in the morning, and if they were late, they could forget about it. Didn't you say you were interested just now? The female officer was surprised. Xianxia sat quietly. The young man in front of him had a fair and handsome face. His eyes were as sharp as swords, but the sharp aura that once caused people to be unable to look straight at him was now much more restrained. Xianxia's eyes subconsciously revealed a look of admiration. Maybe this war is prepared for generals like us. The female officer was dumbstruck. Why is it 15 m? Why are their attacking surfaces wavy? Wu Matian's mind was filled with disdain, and he curled his lips. Interested? Of course, no matter what, it is more interesting than roasted pig trotters. Is that all you've got? Wu Matian looked at the female officer with disdain. As long as you explain it well, I will bring you 3 tomorrow. But if your standard is too low, don't even think about it. Qiu Su Hua listened quietly. He had only been a part of the Honorable Martial Five Tigers for a short period of time. Regardless of connections or information, he could not compare to the other 4. So we have to be fast. Qiu Su Hua took over. A stern look flashed past his eyes. As long as we are fast enough, and do not give them enough time to prepare. As long as we are fast enough, we can take down the Shang continent before they can form a group, and they will be scattered like sand. Qiu Su Hua did not say anything. Out of the 5 tigers, his relationship with Xianxia was the best. Every time he came to Xianxia's residence, he felt an indescribable sense of relaxation. Xianxia was dressed in a loose brown Buddhist robe. His white socks had been washed so many times that they had turned white. He looked simple and unadorned. He had a round face with small eyes and sparse eyebrows. With a faint smile on his face, he had a tranquil temperament, causing the hostility in Qiu Su Hua's chest to subconsciously decrease. Those words struck Wu Matian's sore spot, and he could not be bothered with him. Although Xianxia was uneasy, but he did not think that the Honorable Martial Continent would fail. Wu Matian's eyes did not move, and he concentrated. He changed the topic. When are you getting married? I am of the same trade, let's talk about it. The female officer picked up another pig trotter. The remaining 3, Moxinu, and Go Chengwen Dao, should all be going. It was Xianxia's first time seeing such an expression on Qiu Su Hua's face, and he could not help but laugh out loud. Wu Matian said lazily, I am interested in training others. War was the stage for the generals. It was the arena for the generals to fight to the death. The female officer. Let's end this battle. Qiu Su Hua's white face revealed a rare tinge of red. He was slightly embarrassed. Xianxia had never thought that they could not take down the Shang continent. The Shang continent was strong, but compared to the Honorable Martial Continent, they were too far off. Both parties were on completely different levels. Furthermore, 3 of the 5 tigers were fighting at the same time. It was the first time in the Honorable Martial Continent's history. But he knew that once the Honorable Martial Continent started their southern expedition, the Honorable Martial Continent would definitely become the public enemy. If the various continents of the southern region were to form a group, they would definitely be faced with many difficulties. Is there a need to go to the commander to complain about a pig trotter? The female officer put down the pig trotter in her hands embarrassedly. She had not had enough. She felt that there was a need to rope him in. If they were to get closer, she might be able to get more pig trotters in the future. He silently picked up the teacup and took a sip. The tea was coarse, and his mouth was filled with a bitter taste. The female officer continued to be dumbstruck. The female officer immediately became excited. She could not hold it in and threw out her motive. Then bring me a few more pig trotters tomorrow. Qiu Su Hua's reputation was rising extremely quickly, and was faintly surpassing his own. Jiaya was a gentle person, he did not like to fight, and did not have much desire for power, thus he was happy for Qiu Su Hua's transformation. Idiot! You don't even know this, and you dare to eat pig trotters? You can just eat your own trotters. This is to increase the area of attack, understand? I think I won't be going. Jiaya put down his teacup and smiled. Wu Matian's face revealed an impatient look as he cut in. Can you give me something more practical? Sensing Qiu Su Hua's fighting intent, the smile on Jiaya's face disappeared. He spoke after a moment of silence. In truth, the great clan elder is very hesitant about the southern expedition. We have never prepared for it. It is because of the changes in Heaven's Road that forced us to make the decision. The southern expedition is set for 2 months later. With such a short preparation time, it is not enough to support such a large-scale battle, and that is what I am most worried about. The female officer replied weakly, because it can increase our offensive power. The female officer was roused, silkworm-style strangulation. Qiu Su Hua spoke. We only need to take down the Shang continent with a thunderous momentum. I have seen the position of the Shang continent before. It is at the border of the southern region, but it is not far from us. If we only want to take it down, we only need to occupy 1/3 of the southern region. As long as we control the scale of the war to a suitable area, we can greatly reduce the pressure on our logistics. Hearing that, Qiu Su Hua's eyes suddenly lit up with a light aura, like a treasured sword being unsheathed. The light aura was like snow. The result was not too far from what he had guessed, but hearing it from Jiaya's mouth, his emotions were still stirred. Why are they maintaining a distance of 15 m? Wu Matian asked. Jiaya laughed. Qiu Su Hua's style of fighting was decisive and sharp, like a sharp sword. No matter how chaotic the situation was, he would be able to quickly break it down and find a path to victory. Wu Matian pointed to the two parties fighting intensely. What are they doing? Cough. They are currently undergoing small strangulation training. Do you know what small strangulation is? It is a partial strangulation of less than 5 people. Why 5 people? Master Tang Chou believes that a battle of less than 5 people has a lower requirement for tactics and organization, but correspondingly, the requirement for individual strength is much higher. The synchronization rate of energy is not very useful in such a small-scale battle. You know, the more people there are, the higher the requirement for synchronization rate. Take note of their movements. It is called the wedge-shape penetration. It can cut off the opponent's coordination, and the flanks can provide very good protection and quickly destroy the opponents. Wu Matian pushed the dining cart, which was filled with plates of roasted pig trotters, and passed through the training grounds. In the past few days, Wu Matian's roasted pig trotters had already become the most popular dish in the barracks, and the orders from the various armies were piling up like mountains. Wu Matian had also become the most popular person to deliver food to all the armies. Even the sentries who saw him would reveal a smile. Bullshit. Wu Matian scolded. What does this have to do with attacking strength? Flexibility. Do you understand flexibility? Long-range attacks have a longer attack distance, and their distance can be more flexible. Do you have a pig's brain? Do you want to go up and train? The female officer's mouth was covered in oil, and she scoffed. If you want to send double the amount of pig trotters every day, I will let you train in the training grounds and properly experience the charm of our skull unit. It was too easy for a black to eat another black. The female officer, Do you know why? Because 15 m allows them to maintain the flexibility of their formation. The swords and blades at the front conceal the area, and the arrows at the back have space to shoot. Wu Matian looked at the female officer with a look of disdain. Why do they have 1 close and 2 long range? The southern expedition was destined to be a huge battle. The only way to measure a general's strength was through military achievements. Only when there was a battle would there be military achievements, and any general was a warlike person in their heart. To gain military achievements, they needed a large-scale battle. The female officer was overflowing with confidence. What kind of joke is that? My tactics cannot compare to a roasted pig trotter? Wu Matian's gaze was attracted to the soldiers on the training grounds. Jiaya was still filled with worry. Such a large-scale battle was not because of a long-term plan, but because of the situation. From this point, it could be said that they had already lost the initiative. How is it? Are you interested in this? Sure, tell me about it. Wu Ma Tian truly had many things that he did not understand. Chapter 693. Quickly shut up, don't speak later. Bad luck. Tang Tian was the first to sense it, and could not help but exclaim out. The second to react was Magatama. Her beautiful eyes revealed a rarely seen anxiousness. This tremor that caused one's heart to palpitate came incomparably fast. At first, it was only an extremely thin deep blue line that appeared in the distance, but in the blink of an eye, this blue line had become as thick as an arm. Its momentum surged, and the nearby blue sea seemed to boil. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Niechio's reaction was faster than Zhong Li Bai. He could not see, and was extremely sensitive to energy undulations. His face changed. Although he was surprised, he did not panic and shouted, "Defend!" Unfortunately, before he could even curse, an overwhelming power struck him from behind, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His vision turned black, and he lost consciousness. Before he lost consciousness, he only had one thought in his mind. I need to save everyone. A round-faced man entered Tang Tian's vision, and only then did Tang Tian see the other party's appearance. The other party's clothes were tattered, he had a wretched expression, his eyes flickered with an ominous glint. It was obvious that he was not a good person. If we sell him, he will definitely be worth a lot of money. Who asked him to owe Miss De Lin so many favors? Debts of favors come quickly. Seems like not the red grass beach. Another person clicked his tongue in wonder, walked to Tang Tian and sized him up, and said, "Such a good body. What do you say, how about we sell him to the Shui family?" If not for Magatama protecting his body, the blue energy would have corroded him to the point that nothing would be left. The never-before-seen blue energy was extremely strange. It had an indescribable gloominess to it, and its corrosive ability was extremely strong. The people behind all revealed looks of helplessness. Everyone was already used to Crazy Tang being childish, but Sima Xiao was the Scorpio King, a treacherous and cunning person with unfathomable shrewdness. Did the Scorpio King not feel ashamed? Tang Tian stared blankly for a while before reacting. How did I become a captive? But he suddenly quivered. He thought about Han Bingning and the rest. Not good. Tang Tian wanted to speak, but no sound came out of his throat. I have Qie. Tang Tian was unconvinced. I also have a transcendent soul skill. Why not Red Grass Beach? After an unknown period of time, Tang Tian opened his eyes in a daze. He felt a splitting headache. It took a long time for his pupils to regain focus. What entered his field of vision was the dark and damp ceiling. A large area of the ceiling was covered in green mold, and the air was filled with an unpleasant and damp smell. Bullshit. Tang Tian was furious. Qie is worse than Xiaoyu? Want to fight? Sima Xiao wanted to curse out loud. Tang Tian was stunned, but he quickly realized that they were talking about Han Bingning. Her name was also Goyu. Shui family. His companion was stunned. What do you mean? She was by far the most perfect piece of work. The moment Sima Xiao saw her, without hesitation, he fused the Scorpio constellation's treasure, Scorpio Magatama, into her body. The Null Division soldiers beside him seemed to have awoken from a dream. Their expressions changed, and they immediately formed a defensive formation. Everyone had heard the two of them talking, and had had enough of it. Hot blood surged to his head. Tang Tian struggled up from the ground. Tang Tian stared at the ceiling blankly for half a minute before reacting. The last time, everyone was sent to Red Grass Beach by the storm. Sima Zhao's entire body trembled, his face turning blue. The blue sea was a sea of energy formed from countless of energy. Tang Tian and the Null Division with the zero energy body were not affected, but Sima Xiao, who did not have the zero energy body, was in trouble. The energy of the blue sea continued to permeate into his body. What's wrong? Sima Xiao, who did not seem to care, was secretly tensed up. Upon hearing Tang Tian's sudden exclamation, a bad premonition surfaced in his heart. Upon entering the Blue Sea, he and Xianxia had met with the same problem as Sima Xiao. Sima Xiao had Magatama's protection, but they did not. The two of them only persisted for half a day, and were on the verge of collapsing. But the two of them were extremely intelligent people, and were outstanding military generals, and knew how to use the power of an army. The two of them actually came up with a method to use an army to disperse the blue energy corrosion, but it was a method that could only be used by military generals with outstanding control auras. Don't tell me it's fake. Her exquisite appearance was beautiful to the point that she did not have any worldly aura. Her eyes that were like jade, sparkling with light, and her red lips that were as moist as water. Her black hair that flowed like a waterfall hung down to her shoulders. The loose and elegant feather robe made her beautiful body faintly discernible. Her snow-white slender legs were like the most perfect work of art. With a red string tied around her ankles, she stood barefooted. The light needle was extremely strange, and he could not muster any strength. Not only was he unable to muster any strength, he could not even summon the devil flame. In his daze, Tang Tian faintly heard someone speaking. There seems to be a problem with Sexton's eye. The direction is not right. This idiot. Don't you feel that this brat fits the Shui family's requirements? Magatama floated by Sima Zhao's side, the gentle jade light aura enveloping Sima Zhao. The jade light entered Sima Zhao's body, and the indistinct blue color on his face gradually faded, and he regained his blood color. Even with Magatama's protection, Magatama still had to help Sima Zhao dissolve the blue sea energy in his body from time to time. Look, even the prisoner needle is unable to completely restrain him. What a good physique he has. His body is practically made of steel. He can definitely be sold for a good price. If any noble lady takes a liking to him, we can buy him back, hee. Tang Tian had a look of disdain. You are so reliant on Xiao Yu, you have no ambition. As a man, you have to be able to support the heavens and the earth. I have become a prisoner. Zhong Libai frowned. In the 9 days of time, their journey was not short, but up till now, they had not encountered anything. There were no blue dwarves, nor were there any forest of Empyrean ice tree spears. The vast blue sea was monotonous and dull. Hey, why are you so excited? Could it be an old flame? That makes sense. The Shui family has always been generous. If we can satisfy them, we will be rich. It will definitely be more profitable than selling it. Last time? Tang Tian thought for a moment. The last time we met with a storm, we were sent to the Red Grass Beach. Are you all right? Tang Tian looked at Sima Zhao, and could not help but ask. An unprecedented weakness enveloped Tang Tian, causing Tang Tian to feel that everything in front of him was swaying, and his consciousness was becoming blurry. There were a few times when Sima Zhao had the urge to transform himself into a zero-energy body. Every time that happened, his gaze would involuntarily turn to look at Magatama beside him. Just at that moment, Tang Tian's voice suddenly came out from the front. The boundless blue sea caused people to feel despair. When the tremors swept out, everyone could truly feel the terrifying might contained within. He seems to have a fever. Damn it, this fever came at a bad time. I heard that this time, there was an ice beauty. More than 10 people were fighting over her. Wang Mazi pushed her away. He definitely wanted to keep her for himself. I never thought that Mr. Lin would appear. Wang Mazi's expression. A pity you didn't see it, ha. Tang Tian was thrown into a carriage. The struggle had exhausted all of his remaining strength. His face revealed an abnormal red color. He was in a daze, and his consciousness was blurry. The round-faced man had been guarding by his side the entire time, and was extremely careful. Do you think the storm is your family's carriage? Zhong Libai also reacted and immediately ordered. He was agitated and struggled to stand up. Plop. Just as he stood up, he fell to the ground. Tang Tian looked at the blue sea in front of him, his expression congealing. Just at that moment, an undetectable tremor came out from afar. What do? We are already at the door. We have to give it a try. If not, we will talk about it. Magatama's reaction was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she lowered her body and pounced onto Sima Zhao's back. She was like a soft water snake, coiling around Sima Zhao's body. Her flawless and beautiful face was buried in Sima Zhao's chest. The jade light around her suddenly erupted, enveloping the two of them. "I'm fine." Sima Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. His body had once again become warm and comfortable, and he could not help but sigh. "Luckily we have our Xiaoyu." "Everyone please don't let anything happen to you." Goyu pursed her lips into a faint smile, her beauty unparalleled. He struggled to climb up, but suddenly realized that he was tied up tightly. His hands, legs and neck were all pierced with light needles. His entire body was limp, and he could not muster up any strength. Tang Tian felt that the sound was getting further and further away, his consciousness becoming more and more blurry, as though something was burning in his body. Sima Zhao's face was filled with happiness. "You are envious? Heh, living off a woman is not something you can do just because you want to. This is an ability, a super-grade spirit technique. Do you understand? 21 days. Nietchio said, because of his blindness, his grasp of time was extremely accurate and was not affected by the outside world. "What do we do?" "Chia Shangguana." Sima Zhao scratched his chin. "That woman is truly ferocious, but compared to Xiaoyu, she is still lacking. The path is not right." Sima Zhao was shocked. In such a godforsaken place, if the direction was wrong, it would be no different from seeking death. He swallowed his saliva. "Didn't you guys leave from here the last time? Which path did Sexton's I bring you guys to?" Sima Zhao had become the master of Scorpio constellation, and did not give up on the clan union, but instead swallowed the entire clan union. The unique spirit general fusion technique of the clan union was also inherited, and with Sima Zhao's support, it flourished and flourished. Go, let's go to the Shui family." The two of them anxiously carried Tang Tian and walked out. Tang Tian wanted to struggle, but he could not muster up any strength. Everyone looked at each other. Amidst the ear-splitting rumbling sounds, only Tang Tian's excited voice could be heard. "The storm! The storm is here. Let's go." Everyone had just finished preparing, when the surging gigantic waves crashed down, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. In front of the might of the heavens and earth, a single person's strength was minuscule and insignificant, regardless of whether it was Sima Zhao or Magatama who were entangled together, or the Null Division who had formed a defensive formation. They were all like withered leaves that were gently blown away. "How many days have we been walking for?" Zhong Libai asked. His expression was extremely cautious, not daring to relax at all. The buzzing vibrations enveloped everyone, causing their expressions to change at the same time. Chapter 694. Tang Tian suddenly turned and stared at her angrily. He did not forget his companions even when he was unconscious. "He cannot be that bad." The old lady spoke with sincerity. "You must remember this. People who value benefits will use money to buy people, and people who value friendship will use friendship to bind them. He might not be willing, but as a responsible person he will naturally not act recklessly. If you want people to work for you, you cannot blindly use force. You must understand what he wants." There is no energy in the air. Tang Tian clenched his fists tightly. After a moment, he raised his head and said resolutely, "What do I need to do?" Tang Tian immediately reacted. Not only was he unable to summon the null flames, even the light door that had never had any problems before was in trouble. The light door was dim, close to nothingness, but no matter how he chanted, the dim light door did not have any changes. "Your rashness will only cause their deaths." The old lady remained expressionless. "As long as you walk out of the Shui family, you will be a fugitive slave, and will be wanted by the entire Sin domain. If anything happens to the Shui family, the Sin domain will re-evaluate the safety of these slaves, and at that time, what awaits your companions will not just be manual labor." "Manual labor?" The old lady said indifferently. "The Sin domain is lacking in manpower, so you do not have to worry. Their lives will definitely not be in danger. If they are not obedient, they will at most be manual labor." "I spent 200,000 to buy you." The old lady said indifferently. "If you can take out 20,000 to redeem yourself, you can leave." He closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. His anxious heart gradually calmed down, and when he opened his eyes again, his gaze was clear and bright. The old lady remained expressionless. "You value friendship, I admire that. As long as you do your job well, I can help you find out where your companions are. The Sin domain is not big, but it is not small either, so it will be much easier for the Shui family to find out information. This old lady will promise you, if you achieve great merits for the Shui family, I will give you freedom. If your merits are big enough, I can step out and help you redeem your companions. Although my Shui family is not a big family in the Sin domain, but everyone will give me face." The old lady saw his unsightly expression and immediately understood that he had more than 300 companions. She said, "If you have other companions, they must have been washed to other cities. Every year, there would be a Sin tide in the Blue Sea, and every year, many blue dwarves would be washed up. All the big families would go to the beach to pick up the blue dwarves." He needed to take the initiative to integrate and familiarize himself with the Sin domain. He needed to think of ways to recover his strength, and only by doing that could he find an opportunity. Tang Tian had encountered many dangers and troubles, but none of them could compare to this. The unprecedented predicament did not discourage Tang Tian. Instead, it aroused his fighting spirit. "Who are you? What is this place? Where are my companions?" Tang Tian did not let down his guard. Tang Tian touched the stone bed and dug out some wood from the edge of the table. He ground it into powder with his fingers and felt it slowly. This meant that he had completely lost contact with everyone. The old lady said indifferently, "In Sin domain, people are the most precious resource." Where was this? The old lady's words were not a reminder, but more of a warning. But regardless of whether it was true or false, one thing was for sure, and that was not to act blindly without thinking. It concerned everyone's lives, and Tang Tian did not dare to act recklessly. Ming Zhu blurted out, "An army." The old lady laughed. "This old lady will arrange things for you to do. Rest well first. 200,000 gold. Servants? Where are the others?" Upon making the decision, Tang Tian did not hesitate. "Why do you want to pick up the blue dwarves?" Tang Tian asked. The green-robed young lady was filled with admiration. "Old lady is truly powerful. With just a few words, you managed to subdue him. You removed the needles from his body." Ming Zhu was frightened and was afraid that he would wake up and hurt us. Tang Tian did not understand and asked, "Why?" The old lady did not even bat an eyelid. "It is good that you are loyal, but do not overestimate yourself. You were bought by the Shui family and are now their servant. Do your servant's job well, and that is your duty. This is definitely not the sacred Saint Galaxy. That's right, an army. I think that he is not an ordinary soldier. If not, he would not have such a strong sense of responsibility." The old lady laughed. "I initially saw that his muscles and bones were sturdy, and thought that the children he would give birth to would definitely be outstanding. My Shui family does not have any males, and all of you girls are of childbearing age and need to consider such matters. If not, why would I spend 200,000 gold to buy a servant? Damn it." Tang Tian calmed down. With his rich battle experience, he knew that if the other party had any enmity towards him, they would definitely not make a sound. He had to first find out where he was. Purple Cuckoo City, Sin domain, these two names were foreign to Tang Tian, and he did not even know which continent he was in. When Tang Tian opened his eyes again, he realized that he was lying on the bed. Upon thinking about everyone's whereabouts, he became extremely anxious, but he had no choice but to suppress the anxiety in his heart, because he knew that it would not help. Rationality triumphed over emotion, which was rarely seen in Tang Tian. The two of them left Tang Tian's residence and returned to the inner courtyard. Tang Tian decided to leave. "I am not sure at the moment, but there are rumors coming from other cities that there are a few thousand of them." Ming Zhu immediately reported. "A few thousand." The old lady's face became gloomy and muttered to herself, "These are troubled times. Seems like the Sin domain is not peaceful." "Old lady, are you saying that there is a problem with their origins?" Ming Zhu's face changed. Ming Zhu's expression became gloomy. This is not the sacred Saint Galaxy. My body has recovered, what is my job now? An old lady dressed in brown sat on a chair not far away. She had a walking stick in one hand and a teacup in the other, calmly drinking tea. Beside the old lady was a green-dressed young lady with a ponytail. Her clear black eyes were curiously sizing up Tang Tian. Ming Zhu thought for a moment, then replied respectfully, Ming Zhu will remember this. Tang Tian's face was flushed red. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He was extremely furious. I'm not too sure about the specifics. The old lady shook her head. Purple Cuckoo City picked up a total of 300 people this time, and was split cleanly by a few families. I never thought that there would be two fish that slipped through the net. One is you, the other is a young lady. The young lady was bought by little De Lin, and you were bought by my Shui family. The bed was made of stone. The bedding was simple, but very clean. Tang Tian was in a daze, as though he had returned to Star Wind City. After so many years of training and battles, the young man was still as innocent as before, but he had a bit of toughness after being tempered. In the past, the Sin Tide would always rush up with blue dwarves, but this time, it is humans. It shows that they are going deep into the blue sea. The old lady said, if they are exploring the blue sea, then there are too many of them. I am afraid that they are looking for something in the blue sea. From what he said, these few thousand people are his companions, and if they are a group, what would you think of? Sin Domain? Tang Tian was dumbstruck, but after a moment his eyes regained clarity. He shook his head firmly. I am sorry, I do not have the money. I will definitely return the 200,000 to you, but now, I need to save my companions. You don't have to worry about your companions. An old lady's voice caused Tang Tian to quiver. His face changed. He did not sense anyone around him at all. The old lady's voice came out from behind. You will not be able to leave. In Sin Domain, escaping slaves is a capital offense. Slaves secretly forming alliances to escape is a capital offense. No matter how strong you are unable to go against the entire Sin Domain. As long as your matter is exposed, you will not be able to save them in time, and they will be executed. The old lady retracted her smile and sighed. From the looks of it, this child's character is stubborn and cannot be forced. But he has just arrived in Sin Domain, and his edges are still hard. After a period of time, his edges will be ground away. At that time, no matter how ambitious he will be completely exhausted, and only then can he truly assimilate into Sin Domain. I was thinking too much less an army. Even if there are a few armies, what can they do in this land of death? They will slowly grind away. Ming Zhu never thought that the old lady would have such a plan, and immediately blushed red, unable to speak for a long time. What should I do? Tang Tian's face was pale white. He muttered to himself, only 300 people? This is the Purple Cuckoo City's Shui family. This old lady is the patriarch. The old lady had an amiable expression. She placed the teacup in her hand down, a look of praise flashing past her eyes. To think of your companions while unconscious, you are a good young man who values comradeship. You don't have to worry too much, although your companions will suffer, but their lives will not be in danger. In Sin Domain, no one will waste manpower. He had lost contact with the rear, was penniless, was in an unfamiliar environment. His own strength was damaged. His surroundings were in darkness. He did not have any information, and many of his companions were in danger. He forced himself to calm down. He did not want to think about the effects of encountering the storm, because it was useless. Regret and vexation were useless at such a time. His only thought was to find everyone as soon as possible. Tang Tian was extremely confident in his heart, because none of the materials had any energy. This was something unimaginable in the sacred Saint Galaxy and Heaven's Road. The air was filled with energy, causing everything to be filled with energy. The soil, rocks, water, all of them contained energy. It was just a matter of quantity. Tang Tian opened his eyes, his face extremely ugly. It was Tang Tian's first time seeing a place without energy. No matter how thin it was, like Lupus constellation, he could still clearly feel the energy in the air. There was no need to talk about the sacred Saint Galaxy. The energy in the air was extremely dense. He looked around curiously, The house was extremely simple, with only a bed, a table, and 2 chairs. The bed was made of stone. The table and chairs were made from an unknown wood. The craftsmanship was extremely simple and crude. I want to find them. Tang Tian stood up without hesitation. When Tang Tian placed his attention on his surroundings, he immediately sensed that something was amiss. The old lady suddenly asked, "Have you investigated the gains of the various families? Servants?" Tang Tian was startled. He immediately went to find the old lady. He fiercely punched the side of the bed. In a daze, Tang Tian thought of the others, and straightened his back and sat up. In just a few short sentences, Tang Tian had heard of the name twice, but he had never heard of such a place before. But he did not have the mood to care about that, and immediately asked, "May I ask, do you know where my companions are?" Chapter 695. In that moment, he finally knew that he had found the path that belonged to a true strong martial artist. The manufacturing process of the golden steel threads was extremely complicated, thus it was extremely expensive. The warehouse where the golden steel threads were stored became a place frequented by thieves, and were frequently robbed. From the start, the Shui family had more yin than yang, and 20 years ago, the situation became even more extreme. All the babies that were born were females, and from then on, the strange phenomenon became the law of the Shui family, and not a single male was born. The robberies did not stop, and the Shui family also tacitly agreed to it and did not mention it. The honorable martial continent's process of devouring the entire western region lasted for a few hundred years, and went through the entire process of their rise. The rise of the honorable martial continent was a history of blood and tears for the various continents in the western region. The various continents in the western region, big and small, were all secretly instigated by the honorable martial continent, fought and annexed. Very quickly, the higher-ups of the honorable martial continent faced a thorny problem, and that was the captives. The various continents' royal families and influential officials filled up the honorable martial continent's prisons. The honorable martial continent was extremely cautious of them. The declining royal families harbored hatred in their hearts. They were exiled, and if they were to rise from the ashes, it would be troublesome. But the honorable martial continent did not dare to kill them all. The royal families and aristocratic families were extremely large, and the bloody massacre would only cause the various continents in the western region to become even more united and fight against the honorable martial continent. So the first task that Tang Tian received was to guard the warehouse. To others, it was a difficult task, but to Tang Tian, it was exactly what he wanted. The space was named the Xin Domain, and became the place where the royal families and aristocrats were exiled. It was because of this unique business that the Shui family was able to stand tall. Isn't this the best place to train in the zero-energy body? It was a completely different feeling. All of the movements that he had practiced countless of times were extremely simple, but now, even the last layer of brilliance had been stripped away. Many times, the things that you feel that you are not familiar with, when you are forced to do it, you will realize that you are not that bad at it. Tang Tian immersed himself in it. All of the movements that had already become instinctive started to change, like a withered tree branch, producing a tender and green sprout that was brimming with vitality. All of the frozen images around him seemed to have come alive. The minute fist and leg images started to move. One of the elders suddenly thought of the space where energy could not exist. It was simply the most perfect natural cage. The Xin domain was truly not in the sacred Saint Galaxy. At this moment, Tang Tian sensed something. That was because the people who were exiled were the upper echelons of the various continents. They had received excellent education, and those who only knew how to eat, drink, and play had long since been eliminated. What was left were all determined and talented people. They continued to experiment and explore, using the martial techniques and knowledge that they were familiar with in the Xin domain. This was the metamorphosis he had always dreamed of. He had finally glimpsed the power of a higher realm. From this point of view, he came later than others. For example, Jing Hao had comprehended the sword will long ago. Tang Tian relied more on his valiant and peerless body, as well as his endless methods to defeat his opponents. His comprehension of power was far behind the others. After hundreds of years, the majority of the Sin domain people were born in the Sin domain. Babies born in the Sin domain did not have any energy in their bodies, and thus they were more adapted to the Sin domain. With a wave of his fist, Tang Tian had a strange feeling. He stopped moving, the frozen images around him did not dissipate, he closed his eyes and silently reminisced. The null flames had not recovered, the star door was still dim, but he felt as though he had been reborn. Tang Tian's heart became ruthless. The extreme simplicity was not simple, it was not giving up on variations, but on the contrary, the extreme simplicity contained the extreme variations. For some reason, all the girls in the Shui family, without exception, had weak physiques. The Shui family had no choice but to spend a large sum of money to hire guards. But money moved people's hearts, and there were frequent incidents of theft. There had been a few times where the guards bullied the weak masters and secretly colluded with outsiders to steal the golden steel threads. He slowly opened his eyes, it was as though he was in a dark room. Pushing open the windows, the vast sea of stars in the sky shone down with a faint starlight. A tiny gust of air blew past, and the image that had been frozen in the air dissipated like dust in the wind. In the dead of night, in a corner of the warehouse, Tang Tian started to practice his fundamental martial techniques, which was his usual warm-up. Tang Tian's eyes became brighter and brighter, and in the pitch-black warehouse, he looked like a star. It was as though he had been enlightened, his entire body was releasing joy from the bottom of his heart, every movement he made was an incomparable enjoyment. Space, time, power. All the changes that could be seen and not seen in his eyes were like colorful and different paints scattered on a plate, and his path of simplicity was the brush in his hand. Although old Granny Shui had made many promises, but it concerned everyone's lives, so how could Tang Tian place his hopes on others? The old granny's warnings were something that he had been thinking about for the past few days. Old Granny's words were probably not wrong, but if it truly came to that, he would just search for them one by one. Previously, he had realized that the sea of energy in his Gemini furnace was continuously shrinking, and only then did he understand the reason. All of these things were common knowledge and could not directly help Tang Tian resolve his current predicament, but it allowed him to have a more direct understanding of the Sin domain. All of this knowledge could help him assimilate into the Sin domain, and furthermore, familiarizing oneself with the battlefield was something that every soldier needed to do. Tang Tian's job was simple, he was guarding the warehouse. The Shui family was involved in weaving, and when the Shui family's ancestors were exiled into the Sin domain, their clothes had a few cloud silkworm seeds hidden in them. The energy inside the cloud silkworm seeds were quickly digested, and the silkworms that were born were completely different from the cloud silkworms. And after 3 generations of nurturing by the Shui family, the golden steel silkworms that evolved from the cloud silkworms had become completely different. But what Tang Tian did not expect was that the Honorable Martial Continent was the first to discover the Sin domain. It was said that the Honorable Martial Continent had been working hard to explore the Blue World for many years, and Tang Tian guessed that they definitely wanted to find the passage to Heaven's Road. They did not find the passage, but in one of their explorations, the Honorable Martial Continent unintentionally found a unique space. In this unique space, there was no existence of energy, and what made the Honorable Martial Continent even more fearful was that any energy substance that entered this place would dissipate at an astonishing rate. Even the powerful gold saints of the Honorable Martial Continent did not enter this place. If they stayed here for too long, it would cause their strength to permanently regress. After understanding the method, Tang Tian calmed himself down. Regardless of anything, he had to first recover his strength. That way, regardless of whether it was information gathering or saving everyone, he would have sufficient confidence. The Sin domain had few plants, but many ores, and the golden steel silkworms had evolved to be able to devour ores. The golden steel silkworms that devoured ores were able to spit out extremely fine golden steel threads. The golden steel threads were not made of gold or stone, they were hollow inside and had a soft texture, as light as a feather, and were extremely durable, making it difficult for blades and swords to cut them. In the next few days, Tang Tian had already obtained a lot of information. For example, he knew where the Xin domain was. The Purple Cuckoo City was built by the Purple Cuckoo family, and the Purple Cuckoo family was part of the Purple Cuckoo continent's royal family. At that time, the Purple Cuckoo Prince and his subjects were exiled to the Purple Cuckoo City, and they worked together to build the Purple Cuckoo City and continued to maintain the position of the royal family. Tang Tian's actions gradually changed, becoming more and more casual. I never thought that on my first night watch, someone would come. The Xin domain gradually developed a set of things that belonged to them. Tang Tian laughed silently. There was one time when they were caught, and the few guards still wanted to make a false accusation. If not for the close relationship between the Shui family and the Purple Cuckoo family, they would have long been destroyed. Ever since he knew that the Xin domain could repel energy, a brazen thought had lingered in his mind. Like a painter, every stroke was extremely concise, yet not sticking to one style. The strokes were hard to grasp, and the place where the brush would land was hard to predict. A path that truly belongs to me, a law that truly belongs to me. Suddenly, he returned to Andrew Academy, back to the time when he trained in fundamental martial techniques on the mountain. A familiar, unfamiliar feeling enveloped him. In the past, his fundamental martial techniques had the help of true power, then the power of his blood meridians, then the devil flame, and finally the null flames. The dangerous place was completely sealed, and the honorable martial continent had little interest in it. The Xin domain's living environment was extremely harsh, and the people who were exiled here would lose all the energy in their bodies in a few months. They were unable to use any energy, and could only rely on the strength of their bodies. Directly dropping from a saint back to such a weak state, most of the exiled people did not even last a few years before dying. But the people with strong will to live worked hard to survive. They created cities, and worked hard to adapt to the Xin domain, taking root and living there. Tang Tian's movements became slower and slower. His extremely concise movements seemed to have been broken down into slow motion, and were imprinted in the space. There were no whistling sounds of the wind, and even the sound of the air flow had disappeared. Around him, there were many fist and leg images, like a fixed image, lasting for a long time. The Xin domain did not have a sun, but it was still divided into day and night. During the day, the sky would appear light blue, and was said to be the blue sea. The people of the Xin domain said that the Xin domain was like a big bubble in the blue sea. It was because the Xin domain repelled energy that it was able to survive in the blue sea that was filled with energy. Whoever does not hand over the person will be trampled. But at the moment, all the energy in his body had disappeared, and he only had the purest power of his body. Until today, this layer of window paper has finally been pierced through. Many of the suspicions in Tang Tian's mind were suddenly cleared. Many of the images stacked on top of each other, but there was no sense of chaos. At night, there would be dazzling light patterns in the sky, like auroras. His strength was severely damaged, and if he did not recover, even if he received news from everyone, he could only stare. He knew that he was not an expert in scheming, and only knew how to use force. Since I'm using force, I need strength, and without tyrannical strength, using force is seeking death. Chapter 696. He never thought that the Xin domain would be so dangerous, that a thief would actually be able to use spatial laws. Space, time, life and death, they were the eternal laws of the world, and were the most powerful laws. They were the three most fundamental laws of the myriad of worlds, and were the foundation of any world. The three intertwined with each other, encompassing everything, and the branches were uncountable. There was even a saying that the myriad of laws were all derived from the three great laws, and the three great laws were the main branches of the law tree. Even if his state of mind was shaken, his body still instinctively reacted, twisting and turning like a fish. A layer of faint undulation spread out from his body. His body was like a shadow being illuminated by sunlight. The space around him suddenly became blurry, and his body quickly became fainter. The Xin domain had more than 1,000 families, and every family had their own inheritances, but now, there were less than 10% of them, and almost all of them were destroyed in the Xin domain. But the families that survived were the survivors who had gone through the cruel elimination, and their inheritances were suitable for the Xin domain. Without hesitation, he tiptoed, and like a specter, he flew out. An unfamiliar man had appeared behind him unknowingly. Ping Xiaoshan's control over his body had reached an extremely astonishing level. Every muscle in his body, even if it was as light as a feather, could move according to his will. Ping Xiaoshan did not believe that anyone would be able to struggle out of the land of gentleness, and was probably enjoying the beauty. Old Granny Shue's eyes were extremely high. Countless people had gone to the Shui family to ask for her hand in marriage, but were all rejected by the stubborn old granny. I wonder what's so special about this unknown man, to actually be chosen by the old granny? After 3 generations, only Ping Xiaoshan was left. After succeeding, Ping Xiaoshan did not hesitate, and turned to leave. Ping Xiaoshan, who was flying out, revealed a look of shock. He only had one thought in his mind: run. Tang Tian had not been in such a dangerous situation for a long time, and all the hairs on his body stood. His movements were extremely slow, like a statue moving slowly. His eyes were empty without any light, and his entire body did not have any signs of life. Without a heartbeat, without warmth, without breathing, he was like a lifeless rock, one with his surroundings. And every movement, the muscles in his body would tremble slightly, dissolving the disturbance in the air. Tang Tian, who had just comprehended the laws, felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. The smugness in his heart immediately disappeared without a trace. He suddenly realized that his understanding of the Xin domain was still pitiful. A spatial black hole was definitely a high-level law of space. The sky was filled with light and shadows, and all that was left was a fist that seemed to be frozen in the air. If the air was a pool of water, and Ping Shan waded through the water, strangely enough, there were no ripples at all. But in front of this punch, it became the best foil. There was no light aura, no whistling sound, no ripples, no changes. It was a simple and ordinary attack, but it firmly attracted Ping Xiaoshan's attention. The storeroom was pitch black and deathly silent. Humph, the beauty is yours, then the golden steel threads are mine. Ping Xiaoshan was secretly pleased. He had visited the Shui family's warehouse more than once, so he was very familiar with every corner. He was extremely cautious and never stole too much. He knew that for a person like him who had no backing, if he took out a large number of golden steel threads, it would definitely attract attention, and if someone investigated, he would not be able to escape. As long as there was the slightest movement, he would rather not take action than to take the risk. Ping Xiaoshan felt that the hand that was grabbing onto his neck was like an iron pincer. He did not move at all. His limbs were spread out horizontally. His entire body was stiff. All the muscles in his body were not listening to him. He was like a stiff frog. When Tang Tian unleashed his fist, Ping Xiaoshan's face changed. He knew that he had truly met an expert. Tang Tian felt a wave of fear. He did not have the time to think and immediately took action. If he had known that the opponent was using spatial laws, he would definitely not have taken the risk. The collapsing space would ultimately form a spatial black hole. Upon thinking about marrying into the family, the jealousy in Ping Xiaoshan's heart immediately lessened, and he once again placed his attention back on the warehouse. He had specially picked today because he was interested in the Shui family, who had no time to care about anything else. Spatial black holes were one of the strongest weapons in spatial laws. With Tang Tian's current strength, if he were to touch even a tiny bit of it, he would definitely die. Tang Tian took a deep breath and unleashed his fist. This punch seemed slow, but a faint aura enveloped the entire warehouse, and the surging air seemed to suddenly stagnate and solidify. But once they entered the Shui family, it would not be easy to get out. The old lady was worried that the secret of the golden steel silkworms would be leaked, so she only accepted men to marry into the family, and any man with a bit of ambition would naturally be unwilling. Tang Tian was surprised. The opponent's casual attack was actually so powerful. The Shui family had been flourishing with yin and yang for a long time, and hoped to turn the situation around, That was something everyone knew. He was envious. The Shui family's women were all beautiful and gentle. That guy is truly blessed. Ping Xiaoshan, who had just turned his body, suddenly constricted. His seemingly lifeless gray fingers were extremely agile. He quickly opened the package and took out a small bundle of golden steel threads, and then sealed the package, leaving no traces on the surface. The Shui family will probably not be able to sense any losses even after checking the warehouse. He quickly touched the corner where the golden steel threads were stacked, and through the package he could smell the unique smell of the golden steel scripture. The golden steel threads were odorless to ordinary people, but Ping Xiaoshan's sense of smell was extremely sensitive. The golden steel threads were not odorless, but the smell was extremely faint. And the faint smell, no matter how it was tanned, would not disappear. Just by relying on that, he was able to appraise the real and fake golden steel threads at times. But the 3 generations of hard work did not go to waste. The Ping family's stealth techniques had been improved and innovated. All the techniques that required the use of energy were abandoned, and what replaced it was how to use the strength of the physical body and develop the potential of the physical body, which did not cause the Ping family's inheritance to disappear. Ping Xiaoshan stared blankly at the ground that was less than half a meter away from him. His mind was blank. That was why Tang Tian was shocked. Although the 3 great laws were good, but they were also the hardest laws to train in. They were not a single law, but 3 large law systems. Countless of sages had chased after them to the extreme, but no one had ever dared to claim that they had completely grasped the profound mysteries of any one of the 3 great laws. His feet landed on the ground, but the dust on the ground did not move at all. For such a high-level law to actually appear on a thief, it was too inconceivable. The undulation emitted by the golden steel thread made him feel danger, and it made him tremble, but thinking about it, the undulation was the smell of spatial laws. Damn it, what kind of place is this? Ping Xiaoshan did not dare to be careless. He quietly moved forward. His movements were silent and did not make any sound. The Ping family used to be a big family. Their ancestors were scouts, and after achieving great merits, they were bestowed with land. The Ping family's stealth and concealment techniques were passed down from generation to generation. But a pity, the elites of the Ping family had all perished in the war with the Honorable Martial Continent, and only 9 of them were exiled to the Xin domain. Ping Xiaoshan was extremely careful. The news of the old lady Shui spending 200,000 to buy a son-in-law had long spread. 200,000 was a huge sum of money no matter where it was, and old lady Shui's determination could be seen. The chaotic sparks, the surging air, and the unnoticeable undulation. In Tang Tian's eyes, everything seemed to have stopped. His fist drew an extremely concise arc, as though he had gone through countless of calculations, as though the opponent was extremely familiar with the attack. The dancing sparks, the sharp whistling sound, even the golden steel thread that concealed its killing intent revealed itself. The faint undulation revealed itself like a ripple in water. Ping Xiaoshan only felt his neck tighten, and his body that was about to enter the space was forcefully pulled out. The golden steel thread released an extremely faint undulation, which was concealed within the dazzling sparks and the sharp whistling sound, as though it was a silent killer hiding in the darkness. Any expert that was proficient in stealth would definitely be an expert in anti-stealth. But he actually did not sense it at all. He immediately understood that he had met an expert. It was a copy of Fire Scythe Ghost Claw. In the darkness, Tang Tian's expression kept on changing. He did not know that Ping Xiaoshan, who was in his hands, was extremely shocked. In the darkness, he waited patiently and listened carefully. He could not believe his own eyes. The collapsing space was extremely dangerous. Ping Xiaoshan was extremely confident in his stealth techniques. He had once swept past a famed martial artist 3M behind him, but the other party did not know. Using it to steal things was truly a waste. An extreme sense of danger enveloped Tang Tian. The shattered ripple mirage started to collapse towards the center, transforming into a small vortex, finally converging into a black dot the size of a grain of rice. Tang Tian started to have a headache. Just at that moment, Tang Tian's eyes constricted, In the chaotic sparks, a golden steel thread did not make a single sound, it did not produce any sparks at all. If the laws here are so rampant, then it will be difficult to handle. It was so light that it sounded like a bubble bursting, the sky full of sparks, the ear-piercing whistling sound and the terrifying undulation disappeared like sand and smoke. Ping Xiaoshan was an experienced Lone Ranger. In that moment, his hands trembled, and the golden steel threads in his hands shot towards Tang Tian like rain. The soft golden steel threads released "shio shio shio" screeches in the air. Following that, sparks exploded in the air. It was the sparks from the friction between the high-speed golden steel threads. Ping Xiaoshan was extremely familiar with the positions of the golden steel threads in the warehouse. Who exactly is this guy? Ping Xiaoshan's mind trembled. The opponent was behind him, but he actually did not sense it at all. Tang Tian was like a sandbag. He pulled the opponent out from the blurry mirage. Suddenly, Tang Tian's face changed. He grabbed Ping Xiaoshan and retreated. Pa! The mirage ripple that lost its support completely shattered. Tang Tian looked at the silent black dot in the air with a face full of fear. He was extremely shocked. Spatial laws, he actually used spatial laws. A palm appeared in the air, piercing through the gray ripple. The power of the golden steel threads was congealed and did not dissipate. The power it contained was definitely enough to pierce through a 3-finger-thick steel plate. Chapter 697. Ping Xiaoshan seemed to have seen an invisible net quietly enveloping the Shui family and immediately quivered. In his eyes, Tang Tian's innocent smile seemed even more sinister and terrifying. But for some reason, Tang Tian's simple and unadorned punch involuntarily surfaced in his mind. It was as if it was imprinted in his mind. He stared at Tang Tian. He couldn't understand how such a crazy guy could throw such an amazing punch. This guy picked it up right away. He couldn't help but ask, wouldn't that be a little frustrating? Tang Tian followed Ping Xiaoshan's gaze and noticed that Ping Xiaoshan was tied up tightly. He immediately laughed. I forgot. It was no wonder that laws were a higher level of power. They didn't seem as powerful as spirit techniques, but they were even more unpredictable. The opponent used fists, and the families in Xin domain that specialized in fist techniques included the Lai family's tyrannical fist, the Qi Lei family's 8 musical fists and the Mu family's Mu family fists. The law of the tyrant fist was incomparably tyrannical. There was no retreat, only life and no death. The Qi Lei clan's 8 musical fist was based on the laws of music, and its variations were unpredictable. The Mu family's Mu family fist was the most mysterious. There were many speculations in the outside world as to what laws the Mu family fist followed, but no one dared to confirm it. Ping Xiaoshan's mind worked quickly. He first eliminated the Purple Cuckoo City. Although the Purple Cuckoo family was not weak, but it was not the top family in Xin domain. Ping Xiaoshan had been in the Purple Cuckoo City for a period of time, and knew of all the experts in the Purple Cuckoo family. Ping Xiaoshan's face twitched. He felt that everything that had happened in the day was too chaotic. If he continued living like this, he would not be able to find his direction. Alright, it was actually because of this lunatic. Ping Xiaoshan was startled. Ping family's stealth technique. I can go now? Ping Xiaoshan asked subconsciously. Tang Tian did not know that Ping Xiaoshan had countless of thoughts in his mind. Both parties had only exchanged one round, but he had consumed an unprecedented amount of energy, and his physical strength was already at the bottom. After tying Ping Xiaoshan up in a flurry, he sat down and gasped for breath. Alright, if he was a disciple of the Mu clan, it wouldn't be strange. He had just peeked into the door of laws, and his realm was still shallow. The confrontation between laws was even more unfamiliar. If not for the fact that he was in a state of enlightenment, his 6 senses were extremely sharp, and his strength far stronger than usual, he would not have been able to capture Ping Xiaoshan. Tang Tian proudly patted his chest and said loudly, "You can also call me godlike young man, sure." Tang Tian said matter-of-factly, "Remember, you can look for me if you need anything." Early in the morning, a group of women rushed to the warehouse. The group of women obediently shut their mouths. but there were still a few who had expressions of defiance on their faces. Of course, from his point of view, the other party didn't need to tie him up at all. He didn't have the ability to escape. However, the other party's serious expression made him choose to remain silent. Tang Tian suddenly remembered that they were not in the Shang continent or the Ursa Major constellation. He immediately changed the topic and said, "So you came to find me? Godlike young man. Let's go take a look, won't we know a thing or two?" Mingzhu said. A few hours later. It was the most probable guess. The golden steel threads were extremely valuable, and if old Granny Shui used it as a bargaining chip, many families would be willing to help. Although the Xin domain was made up of frustrated families, but all of them had a glorious history and were well versed in politics and trickery. They cooperated, compromised, and fought in the dark, which were extremely frequent. Disguise. It must definitely be a disguise. Hearing that, the ladies all nodded their heads. Ping Xiaoshan looked at Tang Tian in a daze. He felt that the man in front of him was his brain stuck in a door. We are all enemies, we were just fighting to the death, and I was even tied up like a dumpling. In front of such an enemy, playing tricks is just asking to be humiliated. Tang Tian looked at Ping Xiaoshan's sorry figure, and could not help but remind him, "Hey, you're walking in the wrong direction." Ping Xiaoshan. After Ping Xiaoshan left, Tang Tian started to train by himself. After the battle, he had gained a lot of enlightenment, and was afraid that he would forget about it after a while, so he once again immersed himself in training. Ping Xiaoshan stared at the indistinct figure in front of him in shock. In just a few hours, Tang Tian was able to smoothly use the Ping family's stealth techniques. Although there were still many flaws, but it had only been a few hours, Ping Xiaoshan remembered how much suffering he had to go through to learn the stealth techniques. Ping Xiaoshan's expression was sluggish as he allowed Tang Tian to untie him. Tang Tian's passion caused him to be at a loss. This is too abnormal. Ping Xiaoshan was surprised. He carefully sized up Tang Tian and guessed at Tang Tian's background. Could he be a hidden martial artist of the Shui family? But he had never heard of him before. The Shui family's background had long been investigated by others. In Purple Cuckoo City, there was more than one family that had designs on the Shui family. Such a young martial artist could only come from a big family, and not only did he need outstanding talent, he also needed a large amount of resources. Guarding the warehouse at night is the most difficult. Furthermore, the warehouse is filled with golden steel threads. It is priceless. For him to guard it, it is also a test of his character. Mingzhu looked around, seeing that the other ladies were deep in thought. She snorted, "How can old madam's eyes be compared to yours?" After being on guard for a few nights, his character can be seen from that. Why aren't you leaving?" Tang Tian saw that Ping Xiaoshan was not moving, and felt that it was strange. Tang Tian asked while wiping his sweat. During the battle, Tang Tian's laws enveloped the entire warehouse, and not a single sound leaked out. Tang Tian seemed to have understood something. Energy was real, laws were illusory, laws were like the invisible hand. This invisible hand was not only able to control energy, it could also control the air, sound, light and shadow, etc. Ping Xiaoshan also noticed that Tang Tian was gasping for breath. He was perspiring profusely, and heaved a sigh of relief. Although the other party was powerful, but it was still within his acceptable range. If the other party wanted to kill him, he would not have lived until now. The warehouse was in a mess. The golden steel threads were all over the floor, and a figure was sleeping soundly inside, snoring like thunder. Ping Xiaoshan quivered. He regained his senses and immediately said, "Let's go. I am afraid that they are too crude. Our Shui family is also a family with status. How can they be so casual?" "This time, old madam." Ping Xiaoshan did not say a word, and allowed Tang Tian to use the golden steel threads to tie him up like a dumpling. The battle between the two was extremely short, and in just one round he was defeated. He knew the disparity in strength between the two, and the other party's strength far exceeded his. So young. Did the Shui family hear some movements and find strong reinforcements from somewhere? Tang Tian racked his brains and thought of something. "What technique did you use to escape just now?" Coincidentally, Everyone arrived at the entrance of the warehouse. Mingzhu opened the door, and the scene inside appeared before everyone's eyes. You came to steal the golden steel threads? Tang Tian asked. Who is it? Ping Xiaoshan thought about it. There is no need for the other party to lie to me. All right, I can't do anything about it. My life is still in the other party's hands. Upon thinking about it, Ping Xiaoshan nodded his head. All right. Tang Tian scratched his head. He did not know how to continue asking. In the past, Bing was the one who did the interrogations. Bing's thoughts were meticulous and crafty, and to lie in front of him was simply asking for trouble. With that, he immediately ran away. That's right. Tang Tian already had his arm around Ping Xiaoshan's shoulder, and with a look of familiarity, you teach me the stealth technique, and we will be good brothers from now on. If there is any trouble, just say my name. What's not good about it? Didn't the old lady check him? His body is very strong, Meng Nan, maybe you will like him. Ping Xiaoshan's expression changed. The more he thought about it, the colder his heart became, and he forgot himself. Ping Xiaoshan looked at Tang Tian in disbelief. There was nothing wrong with imparting the stealth technique to the other party, although the Ping family's stealth technique was unique, but if the other party was in existence like the Mu family, it was nothing. What he did not understand was that if the other party wanted the secret technique, they could just torture him, but to give him such a good condition, he did not believe it. The first battle in Sin Domain caused Tang Tian to have a lingering fear. In the sacred Saint Galaxy, the warships clashed, causing an astonishing amount of energy to rain down. It was a spectacular sight. But in Sin Domain, it was a battle of laws. It was even more dangerous and unpredictable, and if one was not careful, they would die on the spot. Furthermore, he had only spent a few hours just now, and he had already mastered the Ping family's stealth technique. This kind of talent was truly astonishing. Ping Xiaoshan. Ping Xiaoshan replied honestly. Looking for you? What's your name? Tang Tian patted his chest. I am a man of my word. Thinking about the simple yet soul-stirring fist, Ping Xiaoshan felt that it was most likely the Mu family's fist. Regardless of whether it was the tyrant fist or the 8 musical fist, the characteristics of the laws were extremely obvious and did not match the fist. Ping Xiaoshan could not tell what was wrong, but he felt extremely uncomfortable. What? Your surname is Tang? Ping Xiaoshan was startled again. Not surnamed Mu, he is not from the Mu family. Ping Xiaoshan looked at Tang Tian's expectant expression and was speechless. Ping Xiaoshan's mind was roused. Tang Tian's brainless actions, after being explained, he immediately became suspicious. He definitely has a big plan. The Ping family stealth technique is just a cover. The other party definitely did not have any plans to kill me. Why not kill me? There must be a conspiracy. Big Sister Mingzhu, did old Granny really say that? Oh my, what should I do? If the Shui family relied on the Mu family, then no one would dare to touch the Shui family's business. It's true, it's true. Tang Tian saw that Ping Xiaoshan was moved, and immediately became overjoyed, and immediately said, Why would I lie to you? Ping Xiaoshan admitted. The old granny of the Shui family truly had good methods. Unknowingly, she had connected to the Mu family. Ping family's stealth technique? Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief, and then curled his lips. That name is too ordinary. But to be able to use spatial laws, that's powerful. Can you teach me? Seeing that Ping Xiaoshan did not speak, Tang Tian immediately said, As long as you teach me, I'll let you go. Of course, you can't come and steal the golden steel threads anymore. Ping Xiaoshan was quiet for a moment. Really? Ping Xiaoshan suddenly asked, What's your name? Is this guy's brain a little abnormal? Ming Zhu could not take it anymore and bellowed, All of you, shut up. Since when are you able to interfere with old Granny's decisions? Chapter 698. But, upon thinking about marrying such a vulgar and lazy person, Ming Zhu felt extremely sad. Even if this man did not have any status, Ming Zhu still found it hard to accept. Xiao Yao saw that Ming Zhu's expression was not right and said softly, Big Sister Mingzhu, today is the day to hand over silk. Young Master Qin, Mingzhu said gently, and stepped forward to bow. Xiaoyao checked the warehouse. Mingzhu said coldly. Mingzhu forced a smile and said, I never thought that the outside would actually spread the word about young master. It is truly surprising. He's just a manservant. Old Madam feels sorry for him and feels that there are many things to do in the family. We're just a group of little girls, and we still need someone to do the rough work. Xiao Yao's face changed. She did not have time to stop them, and Mingzhu had already brought young Master Qin to the warehouse. At the side, Xiao Yao sighed in her heart. It was no secret that young Master Qin admired Sister Mingzhu. Even the old madam kept quiet about this matter and pretended not to know anything. The Qin family was the Purple Cuckoo family and was the true master of the city. The Shui family had been taken care of by the Purple Cuckoo family, and if Qin Zishan were to propose, the old lady would not be able to reject him, and only said that the decision was up to Mingzhu. She has been trained as a successor since she was a child, so she is used to thinking from the perspective of the Shui family. If she really agreed to young Master Qin's request, the Shui family would have no other choice but to merge with the Qin family. It was the first time they had seen such a vulgar person. Mingzhu's expression warmed up. The act of embezzlement that she hated the most did not appear, causing her image of Tang Tian to become much better. Although this person was vulgar, he was not someone who coveted small profits. Although he did not understand why so many golden steel threads were scattered all over the ground, the total number did not decrease, which meant that there was no theft. Tang Tian suddenly sat up, causing everyone in the warehouse to jump in fright. Mingzhu frowned and spoke in an unhappy tone. Xiao Tang, what's wrong? Xiao Yao did not refute, but said, I have the number of the previous warehouse. If you don't believe me, you can count it yourself. Is Miss Mingzhu here? A clear voice sounded. As soon as the taut string in his heart relaxed, Tang Tian, who had been holding on to his limit, was instantly drowned by tiredness. Mingzhu snorted, let's go. When he heard that old Madame Shui had bought a son-in-law, he had long wanted to come and take a look. Now that he saw Tang Tian's behavior, the stone in his heart was instantly lifted. He believed that no matter how bad Mingzhu's eyesight was, she would definitely not like such a vulgar person. After confirming that the other party did not pose any threat to him, his heart was at peace. Naturally, he did not feel any jealousy, and he could not be bothered to bicker with a servant. That would be too beneath his status. In recent years, the Shui family had suffered too much in this aspect. Now, they were in a precarious situation and in imminent danger. If there were no more experts in the next generation, the foundation of the Shui family would definitely be hard to protect. If not for the protection of the Purple Cuckoo family, the Shui family would have long been cleanly divided. There's nothing missing. After Xiao Yao finished counting, she was somewhat surprised, and looked at Tang Tian, who was in deep sleep. Miss is asking you a question. A maid beside Mingzhu could not stand it any longer and shouted. She had never seen such an unruly fellow before. She thought to herself, the old lady must have misjudged me this time. A complicated look flashed past Mingzhu's eyes. She calmed herself down and regained her usual calmness, and walked to the front courtyard. A handsome man stood with his hands behind his back, leisurely appreciating the flowers and grasses in the courtyard. Tang Tian was sleeping soundly. He had just gained enlightenment on laws, and although the battle with Ping Shaoshan was short, he had exhausted all of his strength. After that, he practiced the stealth technique for a few hours, but was afraid that he would forget about it the next day, so he struck the iron while it was hot and trained for the entire night. At that time, he was just holding on, and only when all of the enlightenment was deeply imprinted in his mind did he stop. Mingzhu's face changed. She then remembered that Tang Tian was lying in the warehouse. Oh my God, I must have been angered by Tang Tian to actually make such a low-level mistake. I could have called for people to bring the silk from the warehouse, but if Tang Tian and young Master Qin were to meet, Mingzhu did not even dare to imagine the scene. The Sin domain's environment was terrible, and the body was the most important. If the body was not good, the infant would not be able to survive. And the Sin domain did not have any energy, and could only rely on the power of the physique. Regardless of what kind of secret technique it was, it all started from tempering the body. The condition of the body was the foundation of everything. Mingzhu's face turned green. The old granny was already old, and most of the matters in the family were handled by her, and being clear about rewards and punishments had long become her principle, especially when she saw people slacking off. Seeing the messy warehouse and the sound asleep Tang Tian, the anger in her heart could not be suppressed, and she felt disgusted. Everyone in the warehouse looked at each other and became quiet. Mingzhu's smile became even more forced. "Young master is too courteous. You are treating me as an outsider." Tang Tian laid on the ground facing the sky. Sparkling and translucent saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth, and his thunderous snores came out one after another. Everyone looked at each other, but no one made a sound. Xiao Yao was an astute and meticulous person, and would definitely not make a mistake in the accounts. She combed the bangs on her forehead, concealing her loss of composure. "For such a matter, young master can just order a servant to do it. Why do you need to come personally?" Upon thinking about not marrying such a vulgar man, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The old granny had always hoped to find a strong and healthy son-in-law to marry into the Shui family, to have children and maintain the Shui family's business. Tang Tian was jolted awake. He realized that he was sitting up. "I heard that your noble family has bought a son-in-law?" Qin Zishan laughed. "I wonder if Miss Mingzhu can introduce me to him?" Tang Tian, who was sleeping soundly and snoring loudly once again, appeared in front of everyone. Xiao Yao could not help but turn her head. She could not bear to watch. It was too embarrassing. Mingzhu bit her lips. She had been a housekeeper for a long time, and knew how dangerous the Shui family was, and if they were not careful, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. It was impossible for the Shui family to obtain any true allies, and the Shui family, who were all women and had no power to protect themselves, to any powerhouse, it was an irresistible temptation. All of them would be married off to the rich and powerful families, and the Shui family's golden steel silkworm taming technique would be forced to be handed over, and in the blink of an eye, the Shui family would be swallowed to the point that not even scraps remained. "Is there really nothing missing?" Someone could not help but ask. "There are so many golden steel threads on the floor, he definitely took them apart. If not, why would he take them apart?" An incomparable sorrow and anger enveloped his entire body, causing him to tremble and roar towards the sky. A delicate and intelligent young lady came out from the crowd and started to count the golden steel threads in the warehouse. After the initial shock, everyone quickly regained their composure and looked at Tang Tian with eyes filled with disdain. But facing young Master Qin's pursuit, Mingzhu had never responded. The other sisters were dumbstruck. The Shui family was once a big family, and the strict rules had been passed down. They had been influenced by what they saw and heard, and the rules had long been deeply imprinted in their hearts. When had they ever seen such a vulgar person? Even the hired guards had their own manners. Two. Tang Tian did not have the mood to speak. He immediately stood up, and without looking at anyone, without saying a word, he walked out of the warehouse with a black face. "You're not going to wake him up?" Xiao Yao asked. Tang Tian was dreaming. "If he wants to sleep, then let him sleep," Mingzhu said coldly. "Everyone is busy. I am too free. Furthermore, to be able to see Miss Mingzhu, it is a good job." Qin Zishan's eyes were blazing hot. His clear voice not only did not make people feel that he was frivolous, but instead revealed a sense of sincerity and was filled with the power to convince others. The Xin domain had banished either the royal family or the big families, and all of them had strict family rules. Even the big families that were established through military achievements, after a few generations of nurturing, naturally had etiquette. In the Xin domain, even the lowliest of people knew about etiquette. Although they had declined, but in the past, they were still an illustrious family. He slept extremely soundly, and did not even notice Mingzhu and the rest coming in. "What do I do? What do I do?" Tang Tian did not hear anything. He stared at the floor. Luckily it was just a dream. No matter what, I will definitely not let it happen. Young Master Qin nodded his head and praised. "Miss Mingzhu is compassionate and kind-hearted. Zishan admires you." He turned and spoke to his subordinates. All of you, be gentler with your movements. So it was like that. I listened to the rumors. I shouldn't have. Qin Zishan bowed and apologized to Mingzhu. Everyone was secretly speechless. They were all familiar with Mingzhu's temper and knew that Mingzhu was truly angry. If Mingzhu was not willing, even the old granny would not force her. Mingzhu had been groomed by the old lady as the successor since young, and if there were no accidents, the future of the Shui family would be handed over to Mingzhu. Qin Zishan waited for a while, but seeing that Mingzhu had not pushed the door open, he was surprised. Miss Mingzhu? Mingzhu avoided Qin Zishan's passionate gaze and said, "The silk is ready, young master, please." Young Master Qin was startled, but after a moment, he laughed. "Your servant is truly sleeping soundly." Mingzhu had regained her composure and said, "He has been guarding the warehouse for the past few nights. It is extremely tiring. We should be quieter and not disturb him." The Shui family's golden steel silk was not only sold to the purple cuckoo family. The golden steel silk was not only used to weave clothes and soft armor, it was also made into extremely good bowstrings, and the purple cuckoo family bought the golden steel silk from the Shui family to make strong bows. Mingzhu regained her senses and, oh, her face immediately became even uglier. Upon saying that, Xiao Yao immediately knew that she had said something wrong. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He stared at the stone tiles on the floor and gasped for breath. So it was a dream. The scene in the dream was too scary. Miss Mingzhu. Qin Zishan returned the greeting. His face had a warm smile, causing Mingzhu to be slightly dazed. The group of people had already walked to the door of the warehouse, and Mingzhu stopped in her tracks. He dreamt that the Honorable Martial Alliance had invaded Ursa Major Constellation, and the Shang continent was also in flames of war. He dreamt that Chie was in a dangerous situation, dreamt that Bing was smoking and bringing everyone to fight back, dreamt that Tang Chou was prepared to sacrifice himself for the city, dreamt that Ling Su was unconscious, dreamt that Crane was covered in injuries, dreamt that Jing Hao's body was pierced with swords, dreamt that the lupus race was advancing wave after wave, like a tide pouncing on the enemy, dreamt that Ursa Major Constellation was set ablaze, the blazing flames illuminating the sky. Mingzhu, who was fighting with herself, jumped in fright. She subconsciously pushed, causing the warehouse door to creak open. Chapter 699. Tang Tian smacked his lips. He waved his hand. "It's rather tight. All right, I'll make do with it." He clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles turning white. Inside the warehouse, everyone stared at each other. It was extremely quiet. The ghost face masks calmness, the blood bear's movement, all of them revealed an indescribable killing intent. All of the passers-by were affected, and all of them subconsciously held their breaths. In the dead silent West Street, the footsteps that were not loud or clear seemed to be stepping on everyone's hearts, every step bringing along an indescribable killing intent. A few figures landed on the ground. They blocked Tang Tian's path, and one of them bellowed, "Friend, this is a private residence." Tang Tian walked to the backyard with a black face. Seeing a pond, he jumped in without saying a word. His entire body was immersed in the water, and under the stimulation of the cold water, the anger in his heart gradually faded, and Tang Tian's eyes slowly became calm and gloomy, like a deep abyss. "Quickly go take a look. You don't know how to strategize, you don't know how to fight. If you lose your courage, what else do you have? How do I get to Miss Delin's residence?" The bodyguards all looked as though they were facing a great enemy. A few of them subconsciously swallowed their saliva. Is this the sign of a fight? Behind the mask, Tang Tian suddenly laughed. The black flag left his shoulder and fiercely stabbed into the ground. The sturdy stone bricks were like tofu. Coincidentally, the wind blew, the black flag unfurled, and the ugly blood bear revealed an indescribable malevolence. That terrifying dream caused the young lad to suddenly wake up. He grabbed onto the fresh out of the oven Ursa Major flag, and with a few movements, Tang Tian disappeared. "How's the Sin domain?" The passers-by stopped at the entrance of the West Street. On both sides of the street, figures leapt up like a school of fish. They stepped on the roofs and followed Tang Tian's figure from afar. A gloomy voice came out from above. Like the shadow, it was filled with a sense of oppression. Inside the pond, Tang Tian opened his eyes, the ripples reflected in his vision, and a blaze blazed in his heart. All of the restraints, under the blaze, turned into ashes. He felt that his entire body was brimming with energy. He had found the familiar passion. He had found the fearless heart. The two of them chatted happily, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Was that why he was confused? Was that why he was hesitating? Was that why they were living in constant fear? So tell yourself everything will be okay? He walked forward and took off one of them. Tang Tian found a piece of black cloth to dry in the yard and a wooden barrel in the corner. The Shui family ran a weaving workshop, so these things could be seen everywhere. After searching for a long time, Tang Tian couldn't find a pen, so he found a broom, dipped it in red paint, and started to draw. Mingzhu regained her senses. Her expression was calm, as though nothing had happened. She laughed. "Young master, you are speaking from experience. No wonder I've often heard that the young master is a capable person who doesn't know how to talk. It's indeed true. Mingzhu's experience in this area is shallow. I hope that young master will not be stingy with your guidance." A crooked little red bear appeared on the black cloth. Tang Tian seemed to be talking to himself. "You are Tang Tian, this is your way of fighting, and this is your way of winning." Tang Tian walked onto the West Street, which was about 60 m wide, with towering stone walls on both sides, and purple wisteria cascading down from the walls like a waterfall. The tender flowers were scattered in the purple sea like stars. There were no pedestrians on the street, and at the end was a majestic castle. He had a bloody mouth and sharp fangs, with black hair and green eyes. He felt that it was worth it to come here today, and was not angry at Tang Tian's offense, but felt that it was the right time to come. Back in his room, Tang Tian started to meditate, and after 15 minutes, he was fully energized and calmed his mind. Everyone's figures flashed past his mind, and Tang Tian smiled at the young man in the mirror, revealing his snow-white teeth, revealing a cold, killing intent. He retracted his gaze, and with a calm expression, he walked out of the room. From the corner of his eyes, he saw a few masks that children were playing with on the rattan rack. He could not help but think of the time when he and Ling Su had tried to kill the little princess on Humble Forest Planet. He had worn an orangutan mask. At the end of the West Street. Seeing the man wearing the ghost mask and carrying the black flag, who looked like a ferocious and evil man walking towards him, the young shop assistant's face turned white, and his legs trembled uncontrollably. He leaned on the pillar, and watched as the man walked closer step by step, his entire body unable to move. The seemingly solid shadow pressed down like a black cloud, causing the entire world to sink into darkness, causing people to feel suffocated. Qin Zishan was secretly pleased, but maintained a humble expression. "I've let Miss Mingzhu see a joke." After a while, Mingzhu rushed into Tang Tian's room aggressively, but when she saw the empty room, her face changed. The ghost mask, the blood bear black flag. The black flag unfurled, revealing the red bear in front of everyone. The artist's drawing skills were extremely poor. The red bear looked stupid and ugly, but the bright red paint was like fresh blood smeared on the black cloth, revealing an indescribable bewitching and killing intent. That's right. The leader of the guards became cautious and asked, "Who are you? Please give me your name so that I can report it. What is there to be afraid of? Are you worried that you will harm everyone? Are you afraid of not making any rash moves? Is it the fear of the unknown?" Tang Tian's gaze did not stop on the guards. He looked at the castle behind them. The majestic castle was like an unfathomable gigantic beast that wanted to devour people. So shameful. That's good. When Tang Tian walked onto the West Street, the guards on duty noticed him. He was so overbearing, and it was obvious that he did not have good intentions, causing the guards to be startled and their faces to change. The alarm resonated throughout the entire castle, causing the entire castle to be in chaos. The guards and family soldiers all rushed out like a tide, entering their respective positions. The entire castle acted as though it was facing a great enemy. Ursa Major Null Division, Han Bingning, returned to the team. He opened up his arms, his fingers moving about, cracking sounds could be heard. The young man in the mirror had a cold expression, his killing intent soaring. With the black flag on his shoulder, Tang Tian walked alone on the wide street. His footsteps could be heard from afar. His expression was calm, as though he was a tourist. The green ghost mask followed his footsteps. The purple orchids by his side gently swayed in the wind, the black flag fluttered, and the blood-red bear, in the sea of purple, appeared and disappeared. For some reason, the few of them felt their bodies tensing up. An indescribable cold intent surged from the bottom of their hearts. He wanted to find someone to ask for directions, but there was no one within a few meters of him. Wherever his gaze swept past, the passers-by would avoid him as though he was a snake or scorpion. Tang Tian wanted to scratch his head, but at that moment he coincidentally saw a shop assistant by the roadside. His eyes lit up, and he walked over. "We will follow from afar, there won't be any danger like that. Godlike young lad, go go go." Tang Tian's performance made the few bodyguards in front of him even more anxious. He was too calm and unperturbed, but all of the bodyguards were battle-hardened, and their unusual calmness revealed a biting cold killing intent. That is the fear in the depths of your heart, the cowardice hidden in your heart, the laughable excuse you give yourself. There are a few hundred people in Purple Cuckoo City. If I can find them first, then everyone can communicate with each other, and the situation will be much better. Tang Tian thought about it. Old Granny Shui had said that Han Bingning was bought by a person called Mr. Lin. What an ugly drawing! Expert. A low voice resonated out in the quiet street. Are you looking to die? The honorable Martial Continent is right in front of us, and this young lad dares to barge in alone. Wearing the mask on my face is suitable. Tang Tian stopped. He suddenly realized a problem. How do I get to Mr. Lin's residence? He was ultimately Tang Tian, a powerful leader. Although he was a young lad, he was still a godlike young lad who had killed countless of heroes. And when he got past the initial confusion and let go of the worries in his heart, his mind became clear. His fearlessness and dauntlessness was like a blazing fire in the night, burning the sky red. Thank you. Mr. Lin? Does he have a grudge with Mr. Lin? Tang Tian carried the flag and walked on the streets of Purple Cuckoo City, causing the people on the streets to avoid him. The masked man carrying the flag exuded a strong murderous aura, causing them to tremble in fear. Speaking of which, the little princess is also called Mingzhu. Thinking about his own student, it has been a long time since I last saw her. I wonder how little Mingzhu has been doing for the past few years. Tang Tian's gaze became much gentler. The shop assistant whose mind was blank instinctively spoke out the address. Tang Tian covered his face. He could not bear to look at it. I obviously wanted to draw a mighty and majestic big bear. Why did I end up drawing such an ugly and stupid little bear? He muttered to himself. After thinking about it, he felt that it would not be any better to redraw it, so he quickly gave up on the impulse. He looked around and grabbed the bamboo pole that was originally used to dry the black cloth, found a rope, and tied the red little bear onto the pole. This skill is truly embarrassing. Godlike young lad, I will not retreat. Why would I care about myself? Just like that, Tang Tian left as though no one was around and headed towards Mr. Lin's residence. The young lad asked himself. The shadow above him dissipated, and the pressure that caused people to tremble also disappeared. The young shop assistant could no longer hold it in and sat on the ground like a pile of mud. His face was pale white. What a dense killing intent. You're stupid. You're bold but not astute. You're unreasonable. You're reckless. So what about it? Carrying a heavy burden, it should not be the reason for you to retreat. The unknown dangers in front of you should not be the reason for you to stop. What does the complicated situation have to do with you? The shop assistant's mind was blank. Everyone is waiting for you to save them. They support you, protect you, believe in you, and accompany you through life and death. You are responsible. Is it Mr. Lin's residence? The young lad raised his head, his face towards the sky. He raised his voice and bellowed. Heh, he sneered, his eyes blazing with fire. Qin Zishan was the first to regain his senses. sensing the awkward atmosphere, he took the initiative to resolve the situation and laughed. Your servant has quite a character. I heard that he is also a person that appears during the rising tide. My family has a few as well. They are truly arrogant and untamed, but I think it is because of their environment. After staying here for a period of time and sharpening their temper, they will be able to use them more easily. Tang Tian came out from the water. He wiped the water off his face and jumped up. A few of the Shui family ladies that passed by exclaimed, but Tang Tian ignored them and returned to his own room. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.